And welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast. We're here after the final round of the Rugby Championship, with the Springboks have won. It's only the first time the Springboks have retained the Rugby Championship. So congratulations to the Springboks. And also, it's also probably one of the few times that New Zealand hasn't won for over 2 years as well. And New Zealand won their second Greatest Slow Cup against Australia. Springboks and Argentina had fun in Twickenham. We have URC games in the second round, the ones that actually did happen. We have Prem, we have Top 14, we have everything that has happened this weekend. I'm joined by Shaun. We are going to talk through the Rugby Champs. We're going to sort of do a team-by-team review as well. But we'll start with something we haven't done in a bit, which is first phase, Shaun. So you asked our dirt trackers on Twitter, which player, past or present, will you keep their stocks and never sell, and why? I think maybe before we sort of go to the response we had, I think for me, I can see that being the case for me for Sasha. Like, even, there's moments when he plays, even like on Saturday, you're just like, okay, you're kind of doing hero ball now. You're kind of sort of taking the glory route and sort of going by yourself. But, I'm just going to support it throughout. So I can feel like Sasha's going to be that sort of player for a lot of people now in the future.
Oh, yeah, he should be. There's no doubt about Sasha's ability. And I think the big things about what you can, like the negative side of the way he plays, is something that will be managed with experience. Like that that I've got to do everything on my own, that Willie le Roux sort of factor where he always coming in to do something and then freaks out when it doesn't come right, like that Willie le Roux side. Like we've seen it, so much of it. We saw with Willemse as well, like often for the Stormers, he would try and win the game on his own. And it comes with experience to change that, like just choose your moments. But he's definitely the full package. And I'm with you. I think keeping your stocks for Sasha would be something. I think selling your stocks would be stupid. You got to keep them. We did have one response. We haven't done it for so long, and I dumped it late today, so that's my excuse on that. But Leo 99 May, he was like, his list, bro. Farida Priya, Victor Matfield, Bucky's Buerta, Derek Hogarth, Mornestan, and then he's like, actually all the 2007 Bulls finalists, just to break open that wound for all the Sharks fans. But yeah, mine, it's probably no surprise, is Ruan Pienaar. I don't know why I glitched there, but mine, without a doubt, is Ruan Pienaar. Like, I still believe that Ruan Pienaar, like, it's probably like a few players where it was he was so talented. He was a great 9, very good 10, very good 15, moved around a bit, but there were other players better in those positions and it didn't really work out. I just think he probably could have done more, played a few more games for the Boks. But I mean, listen, he had a good knock, but he would have been incredible during that 6-2-7-1 era the Springboks had, or are having. I don't know if it's if the 7-1 will ever come out again, but like he would have been ridiculous. So imagine having someone that can play 9, 10, and 15 for you. 7-1 would have been coming out in 2019 already. So I will never ever sell my stocks on Ruan. I still think that he is probably like one of the most underrated Springboks we've had. Like he got a good fair amount of games, but I think he got a lot of shit for not good reasons.
Yeah, look, I think Ryan is perfect for this sort of convo because, like, obviously he was great. I mean, not only people in Bloemfontein, but people in Ulster will say the same as well. Like, he was, there's times when he played for those teams where he felt like one of the best players in the world. And even there's times with the Springboks where you're just like, okay, you see this, but there was enough even for myself, as like, I was probably a bit of a Pienaar skeptic in some parts of his career, where it just gives you enough sort of enough for both sides of the argument to have something to argue about. And
yeah,
like you can see the talent but not the production, or you can be like you literally said, like he was probably the second best scrum half and maybe the second best or third best fly half, which sort of put him in that awkward place. Like, I mean, he's probably more what this conversation is intended for than someone like Victor Matfield. I'm just like, okay, when did you have to doubt Victor Matfield, except when he was like 40 and probably shouldn't have been playing professional rugby at that stage. Um, so I think, yeah, he's someone that's perfect for that. And, you know, I think you're right, Sean. Like, if his career didn't like coincide with Free Dupree number one, I think he probably gets a ton more recognition, even more, a ton more tests. Like now that I don't think that, I mean, look, Faf de Klerk has been a great servant. I don't think he's a great, like one of the world's greatest nines, but like Rampin on this era would have absolutely killed. Like just the tactical sort of ability, like he could have dovetailed really well with Pollard and le Roux. Like, you know, he would have been so good at that. It's just
And a
that,
great kicker as well. Like
yes,
kick from
very good.
hand, whether it was nine or outside of nine. Like he
Yeah.
was pretty accurate there
So,
too.
yeah, I mean, oh, goodness, imagine now the Springboks with Pienaar, le Roux, and Andre Pollard all kicking and all sort of at their best. Like, you just have nowhere to run as the opposition. Like, every kick is on the point. Every kick is pretty much, you know, where you need it to be if it's contested. Or, you know, Pienaar in the 50-22 era as well would have been a problem. So,
Oh, that's a good shot.
yeah. And I mean, also, never mind when we had those situations where we had to play like, or we had Colby or Faf de Klerk kicking for goals. Rowan Pienaar can actually do that.
Yeah, we actually wouldn't have gone through that crisis period. What it also would have done meant that we probably were going to take 5 or 6 scrum halves to the
Oh,
2023 World
goodness.
Cup.
Not more scrum halves. Oh my gosh.
He totally would have taken someone else's place. We know this.
Yeah. No, but I think the perfect ingredients for a player like this, like that you never saw the stocks on, is a it must be like a young talent that you just never stop believing in. Like you saw maybe, I mean, even in the South African context, like a schoolboy rugby game or like a game when he was like really young in like the Currie Cup or something. You're like, that's my guy. I'm sticking to him regardless what happens. Or you just, you know, there's some teams that are just really good when you watch them or really bad when you watch them. Like Benetton, for example, I think is a good example of this. Like when I watch them, they are sort of falling apart. And then when I don't watch them, they become like, oh, this team could be a contender for the URC. So you just watch a player at that particular game having the game of his life, and you're just like, oh, okay, what is this? Like for me, a good example of this was Tim Swiel. I fully bought those stocks on Tim Swier. I still don't quite understand how he hasn't become like one of the best, you know, tens in the country and like how his talent hasn't produced at like senior level. But that was literally because I saw him in high school and he was, I think we're the same age. Yeah, we're the same age. And I was just like, this guy's going to be like our Stephen Larkham. And then you just sort of go through the rugby career like, wait, how did that happen? And you sometimes see like a little flash of it here and there when he was at the Sharks, at the Stormers, and you still just like, but like, I know what I saw. I don't think I'm that bad of a rugby judge. And obviously, he was somewhat unlucky in some ways, but I don't understand how this guy hasn't sort of blown up to the extent that I thought he would.
Yeah, sure. Talented. I've got two more, both actually midfielders.
Mm.
One, Howard Mnisi.
Oh,
I
good.
I there was a period when he was playing for the Lions, and I was like, this guy is our Springbok 12. Like we literally have someone that could be a great option for us. I loved watching him play. And the other is Reno Benjamin.
Oh,
Reno Benjamin, I shit you not, Reno Benjamin, there was a period the Springboks were looking for like a 13, and that 13, like, it was way before Lukhanyo. And Reno Benjamin was doing such an unbelievable job. He was doing it for the Cheetahs. I really thought he was a good shot. I still think that if he had got a chance, that he probably would have got a whole bunch more caps than just kind of like a one-offer. Um, I thought he was very, very good. Like he was deadly on attack. He gets through a hell of a lot of work and he's very punchy. Like he's got a moment in him, whether it's an intercept moment or it's like an absolute smoking tackle,
Yeah.
or he's going to skin someone alive. Like he really did have that. He had quite a lot with a good little bit of balance. He wasn't crazy all the way through. Uh, yeah, Howard Nisi and Reino Benjamin together in the midfield. Whew.
Yeah, I think Benjamin was like in that JJ Engelbrecht era when we were, and yeah, Kutauta when we were still kind of figuring out like post Jacques Fourie what we're going to do there, and like before I guess Jesse Kriel came in, and I have a theory now that like any of the like national team sevens players or people that play in the sevens circuit will not disappoint you in international rugby. So I think he kind of fits the bill there as well.
Leroy Carter, that's his name, eh? The All
Yes.
Black. Yes. Like there's a great like if you look at some of the tries he scored, like he's not scoring winger tries. Like he did a
No.
pick and drive. He does so much work and there's so much value in a sevens play and a sevens mindset, and we've seen it. If you had to look at a list of the last any any All Black that is not a proper hooker, and some of the locks, but even the locks, you can go from 4 to 15. The last 50 All Blacks that have debuted, you'll probably find 80% of them played for the sevens side.
Yeah.
They really that's like a pathway for them. We started getting a little bit into it and we started respecting a little bit more. We've got a couple of guys come through, and yeah, it's a great sort of pathway, but it's the work. Like is Zach Ward for Ulster. He also sevens background does a hell of a lot of work. Like there's that work, especially in this era where there's multiple ways of attacking. You can go wide, and then you've got someone on the wing that is actually cleaning, like legitimately cleaning, not pretend backline cleaning, like he's legitimately cleaning, or he's going to be in there to do run quickly at 9. Like he's not going to think about it, like he's going to go in and do it because that's what they do in the sevens. So yeah, it's a great shot. You're right. Sevens platform is huge. It's work ethic and no one really they're quite humble because as much as we think they're stars, like they all travel together and everything, they're not paid the most. Like they're not like these multi-millionaire superstars. Like they're superstars in the seven circuit, but after that, they've got to work really hard, and it shows.
I think also they just are so because you have to be in sevens because you have to fill every role. Their basics are so high level. So they can tackle and hit you like anything. They can sort of like do the covering of two or three people at the same time in defense and sort of play in the drift when they have to do that. They react really well. Like even Corey Toole, the second test against the Springboks, I think he got 4 turnovers. And just like, how did Corey Toole of all people get 4 turnovers? But like just that ability of competing on the ground and running and tackling. So yeah, I think I think Argentina is also starting to do that a lot now with the likes of Isgro. Like once you sort of get a few of those players into your 15s international team and use their strengths, I think that's kind of what the Springboks have been doing the last few years. Like you really can get results because that guy can do so much. And I think even with the women's game, I think, exploit this the best because they just go like someone like Georgia Miller, for example, with the Black Ferns, they just go, okay, you're not really any of these 15 positions we have in 15s rugby. You'll be a flank, but you're taking all the kickoffs. You're going to hang deep. You're going to put you out wide. You're not going to be just the one in a 1-3-3-1 and just sort of crashing it up like Peter Steph Toy is doing. You're going to be pretty much creating for our wings as well. So, we're going to expect you to sort of step inside, pass it out when you need to as well. So, yeah, I think it's interesting how, I guess, that integration between 15s and sevens and even Canada's game plan in the women's game, I think is a lot of it is sevens influenced of we're not stopping. There's no rucks here. We're just going to go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Like there's so many stars that have played sevens. Like
Body
Zintle
Simelane.
Mpufa is also she comes through the
Yes.
sevens and she's excellent. And she showed us at 13 during the World Cup.
Nadine
Um,
Ross.
yeah, like of course Nadine, and she plays in the 15s like she does in the sevens all over. Like she can play anywhere you want. Um, it's it's quite amazing. Great platform. I think it needs a little bit more love, but I also firmly believe World Rugby screwed the pooch there by
Yeah.
I think they stuffed it. Like
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation for another day, but it's kind of feeling like maybe only the women's sevens program is going to survive now, because that seems to be like a real valid program where the men's programs, a lot of countries are canceling them or lowering funding. So yeah, that's obviously one a concern for later. Before we depress ourselves, Sean, let's talk about the Rugby Championship. So round six, the Springboks win against Argentina, 29 points to 27. We'll talk through that. We'll also talk through New Zealand winning 28 points to 14. So yeah, this wins the Springboks the Rugby Championship. They retain it from last season as well. They win essentially on points difference from New Zealand, having a 49 more points in their points difference than New Zealand did. With regards to the game, Sean, I think it was a weird one because it just didn't feel like the Springboks were able to sort of get into gear until like the 30th minute, essentially. And then essentially once they were like, oh, our scrum is a lot better than Argentina, and started using that as a way to piggyback and to get into territory and be able to attack from there, then the game sort of started happening for them. And I think in the obviously in the second half, in that sort of 40 to 60-minute period, they sort of took the game away from Argentina.
yeah, it the nice thing is that there are not a lot of people that are massively disappointed with it. You know what I mean? Like generally when we play like this, like everyone's like, oh, you got to change the whole team. This guy's got to be dropped. He's too old. He's too young. He's out of position. You know, I think, I don't know if I've maybe just not seen it on socials, but also I think it was very much a case of everyone was aware that we only had two training sessions from the travel, and that's
Yeah.
why there were so few changes made. And then it was also more case of like we just needed to do what we needed to do to win. And we did end up winning. There were moments there in that game that looked nervy. In the beginning, we really did look a little bit nervy,
Mhm.
but the general thoughts and my gut feel was that we still had it. Like we had control of it. We weren't losing control of the game. The result wasn't too far away for us to really make a sort of a surge and go on to win it. Even I think we were 10 points down at one stage in the beginning. So it just wasn't a great start. And then that was kind of the kind of slap around that we needed. And then we settled in. But yeah, it was a little bit disjointed for a number of reasons. Like what's weird is that that cohesion wasn't there. It's almost like it was disruptive for the Springboks to have the same team. We're so used to so many changes. Maybe like having the same guy next to you for 2 weeks in a row was weird. Like everyone's like, "Whoa, there's a glitch in the matrix
Who's this
here."
guy?
Got a bit of deja vu. So it was interesting. Like I don't think we had a chance to lose. No, that's not the right thing I'm trying to say. I was confident that we were always going to make a comeback. Like it didn't look like it was too far away, but it did get close. Like there were moments where I was like, if Argentina do score points here, we're in a little bit of trouble. Like you don't want to be chasing it too much. But they just kind of dug their heels in, as you said, realized that the scrum was the platform that we needed, and pushed on through there. Not our best performance, but we did what we needed to do to win a final. And yeah, back to back, eh?
Yeah. I think in terms of just how the game went, it just felt like the attack always had something if they could just hold the ball for a few phases. And that was just the problem in the first like 30 or so minutes. It just didn't feel like we could sort of build phases. There were a lot of mistakes, like passes didn't necessarily go to hand, or I think there was a few times where Willems or Sasha made a break and they just weren't able to connect with the next player to sort of keep the attack going.
Mm.
And yeah, then once we sort of got into like big strong carries from like the forwards and everything, then we're able to execute. Like I think the Spurs be happy with like they I think got over 3 points per 22-meter entry, so that's obviously acceptable. And yeah, I think even though they think that in some ways they could have maybe kicked a bit more just to sort of assert themselves in the territory battle. But yeah, I think essentially once they sort of got into gear, it was fine. Maybe the one talking point from this game is Kane Moody, I think, was a lucky boy. I think he really
Definitely.
could have easily got himself a second yellow for that. What the ref interpreted was just a valid attempt to try and get the intercept, but it could have been
There's
intentional
no.
knockdown. Yeah, I think you agree with me. I think in every world, if he didn't have a yellow card, I think he gets a yellow probably for that.
That is the swing vote here, is the fact that he had been yellow carded before. I really feel well done to the ref for not even looking at it and then making that call. Like if the TMO, if they'd done it and actually stopped the game to have a look at it, yeah, it would have he would have been in trouble. But that is there's yeah, he's this whole like you've got to hit the ball up, and I don't like that. I really like to have a look at things. They need to obviously when you're writing the laws, you need to have some clear definitions of things. But he didn't even try and lift it up. He didn't do anything. He's gone with one hand. He's out of position. He's completely stretching. Yeah, no, he's very lucky, and I don't think there's anyone in the rugby world that will look at that and go, that was the right call. Like I think everyone kind of like we got away with that.
Yeah. And then just in terms of, I guess, another performance, at least from this game, probably the best Marco Marks game we've had in a while.
Sure, he's and we needed it. He needed it. We needed it. I'm glad for Bongi when he came on. He also was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like that was a thing. I don't know why. It's really pissed on my battery that everyone is like, I'm seeing so much of Bongi must quit and all this crap. Like I'm like he hasn't put a foot wrong. So I'm sorry for hijacking the Marks conversation, but it was great. It was great to see him be like the old Marks we used to. To be fair, Mark's we never his problem was never anything except line out throwing. And then he had a bit of a couple of wobbles this year, and then a couple of so-so games with some penalties conceded and a couple of dodgy scrums. And then it kind of highlights the spaces in his game that cover up for the line out throws. But this was good. He came good at the lineouts. He came good in his game at the perfect time. We've now got two and a half well, not world class. We got two world class hookers. We've got two and a half test hookers that can take us into November. So if we want to rest someone and give Bongi more time and Mark's come off the bench, like we've got the luxury of that again, which is amazing and quite important for us as a game plan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that is a bit of a question as to how that sort of goes in the next few months. Like, did Marnus van der Merwe do enough to convince um, the Springboks that he needs to stay in the setup? Is it Hendrik Wessels? That's the answer there. I mean, the curse that's been on these third choice hookers seems to be that you play for the Springboks and then you kind of forget how to play after that. So, I mean, we'll talk about it a bit later, but Jan Grobler, like his throwing was a bit off. Although Joe Dweber had a pretty good game for Exeter here. So that might be something
Two,
coming up there.
yeah, it's his second game.
Yeah.
I'm actually keeping an eye on him. I'm on the hunt for some of his deeper stats, which I'll probably only have later in this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye on that and be throwing those numbers around because I do still feel that he's young enough. He fits the mold of what we need for a hooker in terms of like physicality and everything. I think he scrums pretty well. So it's really just the line out space that everyone freaking out about. I still think Dweber, like I don't think that boat has sailed. I think he will get another chance if he has a decent season with Exeter.
Yeah. And then Sean, do we need to reset Ches and Colby? Like it feels like he does a dumb thing that gives away a try every game now.
It's just only if the opposition is wearing blue and white. Like I
Okay.
think that just don't wear blue and white. So if you want to get something from Cheslin, like if you see him in public, just wear blue and white and he'll give you something. So I don't know what it'll be, an autograph or something. Um, yeah, just wild. that pass was very much a I've got to make right for last week. Whoop, sends it out, intercept. And then, yeah, that has just also brought all the crazies out. They've crawled out from under their rocks and they're like, oh, he's shit. You got to drop him. I was like, bro, get a life. Um, it's hilarious because we've won both games and it's hilarious that it didn't cost us. But like two in a row, it's almost starting to become a thing.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. Like, is this going to be a thing? Do we now need to factor in 7 points every week for this thing?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, last week still takes the cake. Just in terms of brain
Yes.
fartness. Like this week, I mean, the pass was kind of on. Just he didn't really factor in for Batista Delgui sort of coming through there. But yeah, like I still, even when they show replays of it, I still am like with last week's one, why did he drop kick it? Like kick it to your teammate or pass it or whatever the case is. I've just never seen someone in the middle of like a dead time in rugby drop kick it to someone else. Why would you do that?
I wouldn't be surprised if the plan the whole time was to drop kick and restart. Like I
Ah,
just maybe Willemse just wasn't paying attention at that particular time. Maybe the kick was a little bit wayward, which we saw. Like, or you know what I mean? I wouldn't
yeah.
be surprised if it was something that was either spoken about or practiced or planned in another space. But it could also just be a brain fart. Like
Yeah.
I say, it's funny because it didn't cost us too much.
Yeah. And then Sean, just quickly, and then we'll go into like team reviews on New Zealand, Australia. Yeah, I mean, I think for on New Zealand side, I mean, a good win in the sense that it wasn't too dramatic. You know, you got the points when you needed to. Quintupai looks great at 13. Your defense was really good. But for Australia, it was just like, oh, that was a bit of a you wish their win against South Africa was at the end and this was at the start, because now you kind of feel like it's a bit of a letdown from what they've been building for the last few weeks, because kind of felt like this a similar sort of Australia performance you've seen for the last like what decade or so.
Yeah. The thing with the All Blacks and the Wallabies right now is like there's one important player, like you could name the best players like an RD or something, but generally there's a player that does something quite important um like for that game, and when they lose him it really impacts it, and I think it was Will Skelton. Like I really do
Yeah,
think losing him so soon really kind of put a spanner in the works, and they then add to that a couple of dodgy performances and a couple of misses here and there. And then the All Blacks weren't really pressurizing them too much. It was almost like the All Blacks were just sort of hanging there, and then when it was on, they did something. So the Wallabies weren't really trying to unlock them, and that was the thing. And I really think it's kind of goes down to their 9 and 10 mostly. That's a bit of a sticky point for the Wallabies, for Les Kiss moving forward, for Joe Schmidt currently. How they're going to balance that? Like, it doesn't look like there's one player that they're willing to kind of totally commit to and then build everyone around him.
they keep getting
Yeah,
injured, to be fair.
this is also true. Their halfback pairing, I think I saw something 8-9 combo. I think they posted like there were 10 different, no, there were like six different starting 9,
Okay.
10, and 10 when they've used the bench, like
Yeah,
completely different combos. So it's really hard and disruptive. I think if they had to commit to playing one guy at 10 moving forward, I think it would be James O'Connor, but he's too old for them to build a team around. Like he really honestly is there to fill a gap or be the guy to come off the bench. That's the kind of role you want him to play, but he's been forced into others. I mean, if he was going to be around for another 2 years, and you definitely like commit to him.
yeah.
But I think it's touch and go. with him going overseas. Like the contracts he's signing is probably mostly around him being committed at the club and not leaving Australia. Sorry, not leaving for the Wallabies too much. It's a bit of a juggling act. The Wallabies are, Les Kiss is going to have to do it, but it's a bit of a juggling act. We did it for a while. Argentina have done it, and that's specifically with the French sides where you kind of like, cool, I know that I'm allowed to have Ches and Colby for this whole November, but can I just take him for like 2 weeks and then you can have him back? And then
Yeah, yeah,
that's what they did with Will Skelton. Like they sent Will Skelton back to play a game for La Rochelle, and then they brought him back. It's kind of like it's just making everyone happy. We know that when it comes to club rugby, that the French sides are the worst when it comes to players playing Test rugby,
mm,
and we see it with like the amount of Fijian guys that just don't play for Fiji anymore because their club sides say no, and that's their bread and butter. So
yeah,
Australia are going to have to manage that a little bit. And they've clearly started doing it. But yeah, we'll see how that works. But they're in a place where one key player goes out and then the house kind of crumbles
yeah.
and it sucks.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to mention that Will Skelton injury because it did seem like I mean he won and then got a penalty overturned, I think, in the first minute of the game. But there's just such a big difference between how aggressive Australia is with Will Skelton and then without. Like it's night and day. It feels like Ringo Rianlo was talking about like when your big brother's the bully of the school, like you just have the confidence of just being able to step up to anyone. But
And Skelton looked like he was on route for a pretty solid game as well. Like he
yeah,
looked like, sometimes he kind of misfires a little bit. It didn't look like it was happening this week, and
yeah,
that's also like there's so much what ifs around it now.
yeah. Look, I think that's a big thing for the Wallabies that I mean, I would say this is the most um what do you call it? Like this is the best Skelton has looked in for the Wallabies. Like the most sort of like string of games, big games where he's looked good. I mean, I think he's always struggled against Southern Hemisphere teams. He's looked really good against them. So I think I think a lot of it is Joe Schmidt is kind of playing more to his strengths. Like Australia plays such a tight game. Like they carry up from 9 quite a lot more than I think the other 3 rugby championship teams. So they're building on, hey, well, you're the biggest guy here. We're gonna just give you the ball for you to carry through the guts and to absorb as many tackles as possible. So, if they play like that as much as possible, like they're able to do that. But the problem, I guess, is when he's not on the field, who is that person? I guess you can say a bit of Valentini, a little bit of Tupou and Bell, Frost to a bit as well. Maybe that's why they picked Salakai Lotto last week. So I think for the Wallabies, they need to just figure out certain things. And I mean, having a lot of practice now because it seems like all their key players miss games, but they need when you're a really good team, obviously it's when you have a few key players missing, you still play as well as possible. So that'll be, I think, the challenge for them. I guess for the All Blacks, yeah, I guess at least you got the win. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure after the result against the Springboks. So you got 2 wins against Australia. This doesn't obviously say things are all good, but at the very least, you had, I think, enough sort of good minutes in those 2 games where the attack got the tries that they needed to get. The defense was able to hold out. Yeah, I think for me, the story's more the backline looked a lot better actually with Quinto Pai at 13 and Leicester Fainga'anuku. Like it was just like, oh, okay, some power runners like that are actually doing some power running. Like it feels like things are sort of more coming together than I mean, I don't think Proctor was bad, but I think he's just not able to like he's the wrong 13 for this All Blacks and this All Black backline. Like if he was there in the eras where there were obviously all these strike runners around him, he could have been the perfect link player. But now they kind of need, like, their best players in the back line are link players like Geordie and Bowden and D-Mac and even more Jordan to an extent. They need someone that could just run a hard line and run over some people. And Quintupai does offer that.
Yeah, he impressed me. and he might be that guy. Like I was pushing really big for Fainga'anuku to play 13. I'm a big fan. I think he will fill that gap. I think he offers so much.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's probably a more balanced fit. And I wasn't thinking of Quinn Tupai, but I also don't have an issue with Tupai being on the bench because he can cover wing and 13, but so does Fainga'anuku. Proctor, you're 100% right about Proctor. Proctor in the Nonu era with Nonu playing 12,
Mm.
like that's a different player altogether. Proctor does play that linking space. But yeah, I still like him as a 13 option. But you feel that Tapai is going to be that guy now, and he needs to if he has a couple of decent games in November, you kind of think, well, that's his jumper. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it works. A couple of questions like the All Blacks are really, I think they're struggling at eight. I don't know if they know what they need to know, what they need to do,
Yeah.
yada yada yada. Do they have to move Artie back there? So they kind of got to figure out what's going on there. They're just waiting for Satiti to get back into form. Yeah, that's an interesting space for me. And the other thing is Cam Roigard has to be there. Like,
Yeah.
to be fair, they lost a whole bunch of nines, but I think Roigard's got to be there. And then the conversation around 10 is going to be very interesting moving
Mm.
forward because I was happy with Mackenzie. I think I'd start Barrett. Like, I would prefer not to have Jordan at 15. So if you've got Mackenzie and Barrett there, the only reason why you're not starting both of them is because you don't have a backup 10. So you bring in Richie Mo'unga back and Mo'unga starts and then Barrett plays 15 or goes on the bench. I don't know how it's going to work. But yeah, we'll see what happens later on.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to sort of doing a review of all the URC teams. So let's start with the Springboks. So what we're going to do is we're going to discuss, we're going to give the teams each a mark out of 10 for their performance at the URC. We're going to choose like who the best player was, a best player, and then a player that surprised us or sort of broke through. So you can call it breakthrough, a surprise player, and then just a work on or like an issue that we saw through the Rugby Championship. So with the Springboks, I mean, obviously they won the US, I mean, the TRC, sorry, not the URC. So obviously the mark's going to be high. I think if it was just the last 3.5 games, so the second half of Eden Park onwards, it could be close to 8 or 9. But we have to consider like the first half of the competition was just, I mean, it was worrying at some points. Like it just wasn't good. So I think a 7, you can even push me to an 8 out of 10 is probably enough there. Like so much, I think, good in terms of, especially in the backline, finding or really establishing those players in the backline as potential options and sort of finding that level of depth behind, stalwarts like Pollard and Dialendi and Jesse Creel. Um, and Willie le Roux at the back as well. So that has been a big positive. Like it seems like you know, the if there's division in terms of the way to play between sort of the Tony ball and the Russie ball, it's kind of still coming together now, and it's at some points it really clicks well. So yeah, I think the performances against New Zealand and then the second half against Argentina, especially in Dover, just show like the Springbok ceiling is still so high.
Yeah, I'm with you on a 7, except I'd be hanging a little bit to the bottom, like a 6.5 to a 7, and that's
Okay.
purely based on the start. The loss to the Wallabies, which I never saw and therefore didn't happen. And then the loss to the All Blacks. It was our moment to do something, and I think we should have done better. And as a whole, like we'll sit back and go, and I believe the stats are pretty good from this tournament for us as a whole when you're comparing them to previous tournaments. But we know for a fact that we were not as clinical as we should have been. We had a diabolical 22 conversion rate for a good few games.
Yeah.
We know that we not only left points out of there, but just weren't accurate and you didn't sit and watch the game and go, we are nailing it. It happened once, twice. But as one whole game was probably once. So yeah, that's why I'm with you on a 7. Like I think it'd be pretty disrespectful to see what we accomplished and then be like, cool, let's not nitpick, but then let's highlight these bad things because we did win it. We didn't win it by other teams doing us favors. Like we went on to go and win it, and
Yeah.
I quite like that. Yeah, so that's why I'm happy with the 7, but I'm not going to be moving higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, especially, I think we can't emphasize just the first 3 games were really concerning. I think, look, you can understand maybe one of those bad performances. It was just that, for example, the first Wallabies test was followed by a pretty meh test in Cape Town, where, we just beat them. And then that was followed up by Eden Park, where for 60 minutes, players were literally running into each other and lineouts weren't working and rucks were a mess and pass weren't going to hand. So it's a big change around. And look, I mean, I think as a bigger picture thing, okay, maybe before we do that, we can talk about with breakthrough. In terms of, I think the player of the tournament for me for the Springboks, I'm gonna give some love to a front rower. That's what we're trying to do in this pod. And I think Chair was probably the best player. Like just a lot more responsibility now, given that, there's no Stephen Kitsoff anymore. He's retired. Carreras and Tutuko Mtunu were out for the whole tournament. They've had Juan Fenta sort of back up there. They've had Jan Hendrik Wessels, who's obviously sort of switching between prop and hooker. So he's had to play like 50, 60, even I think at some points like close to 70 minutes at prop. And Ox is doing what Ox does essentially at that position. Like he's been so good at just, giving that impact obviously around the field and, in his core role as a scrummager as well. And yeah, it kind of felt like the scrum wasn't quite sort of hitting the high notes until like the last few games as well. But once it did, Ox and Thomas du Toit were working well, and then it seemed like for most games Ox would have a few minutes with Volkolo as well. And his ability as a defender, his ability obviously, linking up as an attacker, he can get a few direct turnovers as well. Like he's such an important player, I think, for the Springboks. And you know, if if the Springboks are sort of moving to an era where maybe they don't have all of the best props and tight five players in the world, someone like Ox now has to play, a lot more minutes. And I think he at least showed that he's able to do that for the Springboks when called upon.
I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to try and explain my justification. While he didn't play most of the tournament, and there are quite a few players that had some standout performances, obviously Sasha, obviously Willemse, I do feel that we could do without a Sasha or a Willemse, if you understand what I'm saying. Like I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they are replaceable, but I'm saying we could still do fine if Sasha wasn't playing 10, and we could still do fine if Willemse wasn't playing 15. Because we have the le Roux, we can even move Sasha to 15. We have options. For me, it was Jasper Wiese. And
Mm,
I know like it's controversial because he only played half the tournament, but we very much missed him
yeah.
and the balance was thrown out. But it's not it's not an accident that we played 2 of our best games of the tournament when he was back,
Yeah.
um, because of what we were able to allow Peter Steph Toy and Sia Kulisi to do the balance of the loose trio, but also the role that Wiese plays. We don't have an out-and-out replacement for him yet. I think Jono Augustus is probably one of our closest, and I know he's getting looked at, but it doesn't look like he's going to be that guy. It almost looks like he needs to come on and
Mm,
steamroll for a couple of tests before he can kind of work his way in, but he is getting looked at. And yeah, like we've obviously Cameron Honeycomb's an option, but they're different players. Like we don't have a Jasper Wiese replacement. Augustus is the closest we
yeah.
have. So we'd have to change a lot of what we do and how we do it. So Jasper's the one for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he is the third most irreplaceable important Springbok. And you could argue with me that he could be like second, maybe even first.
Mm,
I'd say the only ones that I think are like have a pretty good argument against him are Ox and Malcolm Marx, just because it doesn't seem to be players that are really competing for their positions as well and how good
mm,
they are. But I think you could validly argue Wiese is probably a bit more important than even like someone like Peter Steff who's world class or Eben Etzebeth who's world class, just because there just isn't anyone else that can do what he does in that position. And yeah, again, it's it's been 2 years in a row where Wiese has, got himself banned for quite a few Springbok matches, and you just see the difference between when he plays and when he doesn't play, and just the ability that he adds. And he does, I think the carrying obviously is a very obvious strength of his, but he does a lot around the field. Like maybe because he has been banned for, however many
mm.
weeks, so he has a lot of energy. But I think he did 80 minutes on all three of the games, and he's high up there with like rucks and tackles and just getting himself involved, especially now with the Boks are playing a bit more of a ball in hand and high tempo game. Maybe Japan is helping with that for him. But he's doing so much for the team that you need almost, unfortunately for this program, they just don't have someone that does that. So you need multiple players that can sort of fulfill that role. Like I think we were saying the same thing, before with Dwayne Vermeulen is, he is that ball carrier and that line out general and the defense general. So you need a few players to replace him. Where Wiese now is, that ball carrier, he gets himself around the park. He's really good defensively, and we just don't have the players that are able to replace him. So yeah, I think he's shown now with this US TRC run. Why am I saying URC the whole time? But he's showing with that like he is up there, if not maybe even has an argument for being the most irreplaceable Springbok right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like everywhere, my next best player, I agree with you on Marks. But that was just before we saw Bongi come back. Like
Yeah.
we need Bongi or Malcolm, and they're probably second, and then Sia Kolisi. And Sia Kolisi for me because of what he does for us as a whole. Like him and his leadership and how he brings his team together is a rugby skill. So you can't. No one else is covering that. Everywhere else on the field, like and I agree with you again. Like on Peter Steph Toy, he's not that tight player. Like he plays tight, but how many times have we seen him out in the tram lines? So Jasper Wiese balances that out, and we need to change what we do if we change our eight. And it makes it unnatural for those players to play that role. But it's something that we have to do because we can't play every game with Wiese. Injuries, suspensions, and age are just something that you can't do away with. So
Unfortunately, suspension is a bigger factor for him than most.
it's just 2 years in a row. It doesn't matter. Chesney did it 2 games in a row. Jasper's done it 2 years in a row. We're fine. We're fine. We're
Yeah.
fine. Fine.
I'm glad that he's playing in the Japanese league instead of maybe the Premiership. Maybe that means he's less likely to be doing crazy things there than he was in the Prem.
It's your
Um,
fault when he gets banned, eh? It's you. You did this. It's you.
yeah, look, Jasper, just as long as you're not out for the four knockout games in 2027, I think that's essentially what Rusty's saying right now. Is like, look, get this out of your system until the World Cup, essentially. Like, he's too important. Like, he's probably the one player that can sort of get away with that now.
Can totally see Russie like fabricating some fictitious rubbish. We select our World Cup squad, and then he's like, "Oh, Jasper's been banned until this game," and then he doesn't play, and then Jasper's like freaking out, comes back and dominates for 4 games, and we make it a three-peat.
Yeah. Breakout player. I think this is where I was going to make the point that this is, I think in some ways, has been a very successful rugby championship for just finding that next level of players, either through injury, maybe through form, maybe through, the plans of the Springbok camp. We've given certain players a few chances. So the likes of Boan Venter, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Marnus van der Merwe, Ron Kia, I think is sort of in this category as well. in the back line, you've had Mone van der Berg, Sasha Ngomazulu, Damien Willems, Kanan Moody, Ethan Hooker that have been given good chances. I think out of those players, I mean, some of them have been in the setup for a while. Some of them are kind of more head or close to the pack as others. But I think Ethan Hooker has really established himself a little nook in the Springbok squad, and it's going to be hard to move him out now. Like just that second half against New Zealand and just his work rate, like he knows he's not obviously as elusive as Orange and Colby or as maybe a good finisher as like Mapimpi was in his prime or even is still now. But man, that guy works hard. And, obviously there is a big tradition of Springbok centers starting off at wing. And he's just shown like he can do sort of both and do it at pretty high level. So like I think that he would be the breakout player for me.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. What I will say is I just wish we would have given him more ball this weekend.
Mm,
But he's setting himself an amazing foundation, like more with the coaches and with everyone in that team. Like, listen, I am here. I am going to work hard. Like, that's what it seems like to me as well. We will work on plans for him. That's where I'm excited. Like, what is the plan for him? Because we very seldom have players there that are passengers. Like, everyone has a role in the game or something. Like, will his plan be to move to 12 or 13 eventually and check him out there? Or are we going to run some moves with him? Or are we going to bring him in and he's going to just steamroll guys or first phase, like coming into the 12 channel? That's what I'm quite excited for. That's a great shot. Um, Mine is going to be Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, because listen, that performance he put against Argentina was freaking wild.
yeah.
And also because of where he started, he had injured and then he came back, and we so used to players coming back and taking a while to get back in the mix, and he's shown that he's like really got it. Like he has absolutely got what it takes to be playing Test rugby, and he'll do it for a long time, barring a mishap, whatever the case may be. I think he's in a good enough space. I think we're in a nice enough environment that we not square pegging round whole people anymore. Like we are allowing people to do their thing, but they have roles to fulfill within the game, and they've got learnings, and we've got a great environment to learn from. So Sasha would be my pick, as predictable as it is. I think he's a great shot.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, if you get yourself to a position where, I mean, it's been a weird rugby championship in the sense that if you told me before the rugby championship that Vincent Koch, Makazoma Pimpi, Faf de Klerk, Lucanio wouldn't play a minute of the whole rugby championship, and then the likes of, Andre Pollard, Jesse Creel, Damien Dialendi, Franco Mostert have barely played much since the test in Auckland. And the Springboks won the last three games, and I mean because we're 1-3 games after Auckland, and won the championship as well, and are pretty happy with the players that have replaced them in those positions. Like that's a great spot to be. So I mean, yeah, I know, I know people always do the joke that like anytime the Springboks lose is part of the plan, but it really kind of felt like the first three games are kind of given to the oldies just to be like, well, you show what you can do. Maybe I want to say play yourself out of the squad, but like you show what you can do. We can sort of give the younger players a bit of a chance. Maybe in some ways, maybe the Springboks thought, okay, maybe we not don't have maybe a 100% chance. So let's sort of, throw caution to the wind for that selection in Wellington, and it really worked out. So I think that's obviously a big positive for the Springboks. I mean, it kind of goes to my thing of like, of maybe the problem or the work on is it important for a rugby team to know their best 23, or does it matter that you can sort of pick 30 odd players and that works? I do have to say though that there's still some non-negotiables. I think especially in the tight five, pretty much I think in the forwards, it's more or less the best of the best are playing. But in the back line now, it's probably about 13, 14 players. You can probably sort of do a pick and choose raffle from there, and then that's a backline that can probably win you most games.
Yeah, you can pick a team on a gut feel. Like you can be like, oh, he's looking good at training. Let's push him in. Yeah. There's a player I want to mention, and he's absolutely been in the mix a lot. But Cobus Reinach, I
Mm,
don't think has been getting enough respect this tournament. I've been really impressed with him. He's he really like it looks like he's casually running up to the ball. Like everything's happening in slow motion for him, but he's not slowing the ruck down in any way. Like he waits for his chances. So much experience there. I've been super impressed with him. Like he's kind of fought for a first choice nine jumper. And you know, we've got the option of having him and Williams in the same squad together. Match their squad is pretty well. But I've been pretty impressed with Reinach. There was a little bit of a sticky space we had at nine. We were kind of running a bit thin there, and Reinach's taken that and said, "Listen, it's cool, guys. I got you covered."
yeah. No, I think he's done his core jobs well. I mean, last week or Saturday, he was man of the match. I don't even think that was probably his better performances. I think the last few weeks were probably even better just because, I think, and that's what Reinach has done, I think, for the last 8 or so years is at the very least, you're going to get a good quality of pass and box kick. And some of the other stuff can sort of be a bit more, you know, in and out and on and off. And, he's able to be that calming force up until, either Grant Williams finds form or maybe someone like Jaden Hendrickson comes back in or Faf de Klerk comes back in. So he seems to be always that substitute nine. I mean, he obviously played that role in that Lions series. He played that
Almost for his
role.
whole career.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can always go back to someone like him, I think you're in a good space. And I think that's the big positive for the Springboks is a lot of positions, there's two, maybe even three players that you're like, okay, I can trust that. And it also just establishes for the oldies, like, you still need to obviously perform quite well. So even someone like Jesse Creel, for example, I still think he's a better 13 than Kane and Moody. And I think he showed that even on Saturday. But you know that Moody's is not going to get worse. He's going to get better. So you have to keep on your level of performance. Damon Dialendi, the same with like someone like Andre Esthuizen, like Andre Pollard or Sasha Fineman Gomezulu. So it's going to be quite interesting, I think, in the URC. I don't know what the plan is yet. I don't know if there's been news on how many of these games they're playing because there's basically 3 games until they play Japan and Twickenham. I assume they're not playing this week and maybe we'll play next week. Um, but it'll be cool to see. I mean, someone like Pollard hasn't played since early September. So I wouldn't mind actually him playing relatively soon and just getting that form because, yeah, you might still obviously place and start Sasha at 10, but, Pollard might be probably a more appropriate fly half for games in Paris and Dublin.
Yeah, and he's been named in the touring squad for the Bulls.
Great.
So he'll get a couple games in. But yeah, now it's almost a case of like you kind of don't want any player to boil over, but you just want to keep them simmering. So now it becomes that juggling act of like giving this guy minutes and this guy time. And you touched on it earlier where barring the tight five, we've got so many options. You kind of got to keep them interested, you got to keep them kind of ticking over, got to keep them hungry, but don't make them complacent. The conversations must be quite something.
Yeah. No, look, Rusty's kind of like it's sort of like having like maybe it's kind of like playing the field. Like he has to tell both people how important they are to him and sort of keep them both happy without them kind of knowing that there's another person in the mix. So there's a lot of personality management that he has to do right now. A quick other shout out, maybe, is also Jan Hendrik Wessels. Like, I think he's been really good, especially obviously just switching essentially, I think, every week between the two positions. Like, and I guess that's the conversation for now is when he gets back to the Bulls, him and Moody are not really the first choices in those positions that the Springboks want them in. But yeah, there's a phone call Rassi and Johan Ackermann need to have and to have really quickly. Let's go to the All Blacks. They were second in the Rugby Championship. They essentially lost it because of losing big in that second half in Wellington. And I think that's going to be the thing that probably makes them annoyed here is this was within their grasp. Like they really, there's no, I think it's the same as like we have with South Africa in Ellis Park. There's no reason for you to sort of lose your heads or to sort of drop your head so much that, a 14-point loss becomes a 30, 40, 50-point loss. So that would be such a frustration for them. They still won a game against in South Africa. They still won a game in Argentina. They obviously keep the bleeders slow. But I mean, they're probably if the Springboks are a 7, I think we land on a 7. I think they're like a 6, where it's just like there's a lot of like sounds you make because you're not 100% sure about what this team is.
That makes me want to give them a higher rating than the Springboks. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, they did blow it out, and they essentially lost the tournament that day in that big loss against us. But they still were in with the shots all over. And I want to kind of rate them higher because you can't see that they're going to be doing a hell of a lot better sooner. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like they don't quite know who's their best 15. Their loose trio is a little bit up in the air at the moment. They don't know what's going on at 10. They're not sure about 13. Um, Even props they're kind of umming and ahhing about. Like that's the thing. I think they did relatively well. I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, it's unusual for them to take the pacing that they did against us, and it's unusual for us to dominate a side and then put points on them. We historically are not ruthless.
Yeah.
We're those two things away from us having to win by more at Twickenham to secure the title. So it was relatively close. So I think they also a 7, probably, but kind of closer to a 7.5, where the Springboks I said would not go higher than a 7.
Yeah. I think you're right, Sean. I'm just looking through the All Blacks team. I'm just like, who knows what, what position they play. They're the first choice. They know what their role is. I think the props are interchangeable between sort of the top 4 props. Some can start, some can bench, and that's fine, actually. That's not a problem. Taylor's probably assured. Tupovai, I think, is in the starting pack. Just that depends on whether it's lock or flank. Um, is Scott Barrett fully assured? I'm not sure at the moment.
For me,
Ardy's
he is.
playing.
I would
Yeah.
start him.
Yeah, I guess fair enough. I mean, at least Holland and Tuipulotu are giving some backup. Ardy is 7 or 8. Probably you'd want him at 7, I think, as much as possible. I think you're right. The 8s haven't really performed. I guess the TT is still coming back from injury, and Peter Lakaya as well. Roygaard's obviously 9. 10 is a question mark. Geordie's, I think, got 12. I don't think it's been his best rugby championship, but I still think he's shown more than others.
He's the
13 is
glue
a,
guy, though. I know he
yeah,
hasn't had the best, but he does everything in that game. Like he does the tight work, then he comes up with the moment. Like if it wasn't for Geordie Barrett, the All Blacks would probably finish third, maybe fourth.
yeah. No, yeah, I think you're fully right. Like in me saying he hasn't performed well, it's just that obviously last 2 years as he's been fantastic, but he's so needed because he pretty much does everything for them as a 12. Like he's important in the kicking game, he's important in defense, he's important in attack, he's important in rucks. Like so he's really needed, especially now when New Zealand doesn't really have a 13 that they fully are trusting. And the back 3, I think, except for Jordan, it's still a bit of like, where does he play and all that sort of stuff. So it, yeah. I think I mean, I've always said they're still in denial about them being more of a tight, kick a lot, play defense, play on the counter type team. Like they're gonna have to start learning to be boring. And I think Razor knows this also from the Crusaders. Like those Crusaders teams weren't necessarily that exciting. Like Mongo would do something ridiculous, Jordan would do something ridiculous, but they were sort of like, they were, I guess, a typical South Island team. They earned it up front. They earned it with their kicking game. They earned it with their defense. So they need to, I think, lean more into that because it's not quite working sort of an attack. I think we talked about the Wallaby game, like at least there was maybe something you could see with Tupaya and Nuku, but it's still, I think the basis of them is their forwards. So for me, saying that, I think my MVP for them has been Tupovai. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. I think he leads the competition lineup steals. He's right there for turnovers as well. He's obviously very active, very busy, ball carrier, tackler as well. We know in the South African context how much of an irritant he is as well. You need at least one All Black forward that you need to punch right in the face. He's taken up the mantle from Dane Coles. That's good, I think, for them as well. Yeah, but I think he's just married like the ability with consistency now. And yeah, like he's getting himself into that like, world-class conversation. I think he's not going to be far off in the next few months. Like he's done everything for them. And, where they play six, I think he plays six against some teams, like against maybe France and maybe the Boks, where he plays five. Like I think he could do a really good role for them.
Yeah, it's a great shot. I think, firstly, I'm going to talk about a player that I'm not picking and why. Like, I don't quite buy into this Fabian Holland stuff.
Mm.
I think if all their locks and their blindside flanks are fit and in form, I don't think Holland makes the 23. So, but I also perhaps am not seeing the potential of what he's got. Maybe that's the thing. Like, I think Holland is decent. I just don't, he's not my MVP or my great guy at the moment. To be fair, he does win a lot of lineouts and does a lot of graft. So he really does
Yeah, he hits
play a
it.
lot tighter. But the problem is you want to play him with a Tupo Vi, and I don't want to drop Scott Barrett. That's probably a more accurate way of putting it. So I don't think Holland will suit them off the bench either. But my MVP is someone that has come from nowhere, but has really kind of stuck through it and plugged the gap, like almost been put on the team sheet and does the job on the day that you don't notice him, but not in a bad way, because you don't notice him because he's doing his job, and that's Simon Parker.
Yeah.
Parker's been he's 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 reduced the problems that Razor's got by playing. Like he hasn't given Razor a reason to worry about the blindside flank. I think he gets by through his work really hard. I think no matter what's happening in the loose trio, like whatever order they're putting them in and who's playing at eight and what's going on, I think he just gets through his work. Like he's a head down, don't worry about all the noise around you. I'm just going to do my job.
Yeah.
And they've needed him. Like, I don't think they realize how much they needed that guy. I don't think it was specifically him before the tournament,
Mm.
but it turned out to be him. They needed that guy that you don't worry about because if you look at 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, it's been changing and chopping and moving, and Ardy's always there, but you don't know if he's going to play 8 or on the flank.
Yeah.
But Simon Parker has been consistent, and that has been key.
Yeah, he was going to be my shot for the breakthrough player. So I think you've essentially said as much as I want to say. Just someone that can do. I think you need at least one person, either in your locks, using your blindside flank, that is the high carries, high tackles person. And he's become that for them. Like he can get through over 10 carries. He can, make 20 tackles. I think he did that against Argentina. Like he's decent around the rucks. He can get up there for lineouts. Like and he's great around the trams as well. Like we saw in the Wellington test against the Springboks. Just that person is able to link things up. Um, yeah, I think just on Holland, like I think I was saying, he's just such a high work rate person. Like
Yeah.
you can see sort of,
He's also a glue guy.
yeah, he's a glue guy. I think you can see sort of like the Brody Retallick without the other like other worldly things that Retallick was doing in terms of just he'll hit a ruck and he'll be hit. He'll sort
Yeah.
of carry the ball quite well. He'll tackle quite well. And he's only 22, so like obviously he'll only get better from here. I really see the future for the New Zealanders and for Australia actually being a 6-2 bench. Like just play Holland and Tuipulotu as like your second half lock pairing. You can move Vi to 6 if you think he's having a good game still. Just use that power to be able to sort of go, to be able to impose yourself in a game as much as possible. So he's, I think, been my breakthrough player. Yeah, I mean, Sean, I guess Tuquintupai could also be a candidate for that. I mean, he's been playing. I mean, he played Test rugby about 3 or 4 years ago. He obviously got seriously injured in Australia by a ruck by Darcy Swain, but I mean, he's come back well. He's obviously not like a 20-year-old, but he's found himself a nice niche in that team now.
He has, and like all those things you mentioned are right, but he's always in the right place.
Yeah,
Like he's always there to score those tries. Like I was that try against us, I was like, oh, it's such a soft try. Like it's not quintuple, like it's not greatness from him.
yeah,
But then he goes and scores more, and you realize he's doing that because he's got a bit of vision. He's reading what's happening and where it is. Um, he's been great. Honestly, I think he might have, even if he doesn't have a great November, I think he might have sewn up that 13 jumper.
mm,
Like, because I think Razor's looking for someone a little bit more punchy there. And Tupai's come up at the right time.
yeah. I mean, Leroy also is a candidate. It's funny that both
He's my
breakthrough,
guy.
yeah, both
He's,
breakthrough All Black backline players are 26 instead of they're usually like 19 or 20. So I guess the women's game does that now, and the men's game have
yeah.
these old geezers coming through.
Yeah, for sure. Leroy is my breakthrough player by a mile, and it's for everything we mentioned about earlier on about what he brings as a sevens player. He works flipping hard. Like I saw him in driving mauls. We've seen him pick and go. I've seen him at 9. You've seen him rucking. I saw him with a really good couple of rucks.
Yeah,
Like there's a difference between a backline player rucking and a sevens foundation backline player rucking. Like there's a massive difference,
mm,
and you can see it with him. His performance has basically basically what it's done is it's also put a few of the older boys on notice. Like,
mm,
and what him being there has done is also forced Will Jordan to go to 15. It seems like Razor prefers Jordan at 15 and he's
yeah,
quite comfortable with Carter being there. But no, having seen that they moved Carter from 11 to 14, it looks like Razor really wants Carter there in the mix. I think he sees the value that he brings and wants him to play. So he's happy to move guys around in order to bring Carter in. That's how it looks to me. I mean, it might not be that deep. It just might have been a player there to fill the gap.
yeah,
But Carter will almost definitely go on tour in November and he will
yeah.
play almost all the games.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when once, I mean, they've really struggled with injuries, but if Caleb Clark and Lester Fanganuku are all fit and Imoni Narawa fit, is where does Clark then fall into, or sorry, Carter fall into that pecking order? But yeah, I think based on performance, it's hard to say he must be dropped. Like, at least he's like, maybe, yeah, I think New Zealand is better usually when they have a glue wing and then they have, a crazy brilliant wing. So maybe that's the role that he can play there. So, I think, yeah, New Zealand, they aren't now the team anymore that can ride out a few injuries. Like obviously we saw with Cam Roygaard, like him being available the last 3 rounds or last 2 rounds made a difference. That crisis at wing, they had, Cody Taylor wasn't available for a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think on the other hand, if then all these players are fit, they have a tough like November as we discussed last week. Like, they're facing Ireland in the US and then they go back for Scotland, England, and Wales. So yeah, 4 games, a lot of opportunity. But I think in terms of the work count for Razor, it's just don't get deceived by Mos Moelina and Jeff Wilson and John Cohen. Like, just be a tight team. Like, really, just work on just being sort of playing that 10-man rugby and then just setting up the opportunities. For the backs to finish up. Like, they don't need to be sort of the superstars of the game. Like, you give them limited touches, you tell them they must work on their basics in terms of like high ball and defense, and the opportunities will come to them and let the forwards do what the forwards do.
Yeah. You almost feel like Razor's putting the cart before the horse.
Mm,
If you know anything about rugby, all the great All Black sides really like their job was defense, and scoring great tries was kind of the reward afterwards.
Yeah.
You throw the ball for the dog, and give it a treat. That's kind of how it worked for them. So they really need to go back to that. And unfortunately, it's kind of like that foundation is gone. So they need to work on that. It's almost like you've got to put that layer in first and then bring the rest out. And I don't think the All Black public, I don't think they have the patience for it. And I
Yeah.
really feel that they've lost patience with Razor already. Like, I think a lot of people are Razor's kind of walking on thin ice because they do. I don't even know all their fixtures in November, but like, let's say they get panelled by Ireland,
Yeah.
and that's the first game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The rest of that, they better win 100-0 for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it's going to be. If they have an opposite November as to what they had last year, I wouldn't be surprised if Razor is gone before the World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it seems like because of obviously the high expectations, but just, yeah. Also because this team can't be consistent for more than like a game or two. Yeah. There's always going to be that risk of this loss could be like a dangerous loss. Look, they need to win at least 3 out of 4. And, 4 out of 4 is obviously, I think, the goal and it's possible, but they need to be able to go, okay, Ireland and England, at least one of them needs to be a win. Obviously, Scotland and Wales need to do the business like they've done for the last 100 or so years. So yeah, I think if it's a loss against Ireland in the US, that England game becomes a high pressure game. And I mean, obviously, we know England has been improving. I think Scotland can also give them a bit of a game, and okay, Wales won't. But yeah, I think then it just becomes a pressure thing. But yeah, I mean, they still have so many questions about their 23. So I think for Razor, he also wants to be in a position where we've got 4 or 5 wins in a row. Vibes are good. Let me try this player. Let me now sort of make a few more changes because it kind of feels like he wants to earn that right, which he does to an extent, but it's not going to happen because this team can't really do like a 4 or 5 match winning streak or even 3 or 4 good games in a row.
No, and I think by them having such a good November last year, it really that was his freebie last year.
Mm.
Remember how they were going into November, he was struggling using his bench, etc., etc. So now, like he's had a great November too, and now they're like, yeah, cool. The All Blacks are big on like whatever you did last year, just do it better this year, and it
Mm.
almost looks like it can't happen that way.
Yeah, I was literally just looking through their team for the Island game last year. I'm like, it's not that different. I mean, Amor was there. He's obviously injured at the moment. Perifeta was there, but he didn't even come onto the field. Fina
That's
was
unlike Razor.
Yeah. Talea was there. Rico Ioane was at 13 still. Sam Kane was there. So I'm like, I don't think there's much of a difference. It's just, when they actually kick more, they flip and play well. Like, it just frustrates me that they don't seem to realize that. I mean, great for us and the rest of the world that they don't really realize that they have to be now the more sort of like conservative kicking. I mean, you have Bowden Barrett, Cam Roygaard, Geordie Barrett, Will Jordan, maybe even David McKenzie all on the field at the same time. Kick. You can kick. You can kick well. Like, I mean, I don't know why you would want to do anything else, but yeah. Anyway, I digress. Wallabies, they were third. Man, I'm so sad for them because literally, if we did this after round 3 or round 4, we'd have probably saying like 8 or 9. Now it's also sort of falling towards the sixes, and it's just that I think kind of like New Zealand, they've been unlucky, very unlucky with injury. Like I think they've had games where Will Skelton or Tom Wright or Len Ikitau all haven't played. Angus Bell all haven't played for whatever reason. They've had rotation at 9 and 10. They've had to figure a few things out. But they win in South Africa. They had 3 out of 4 home games. They needed to at least have 3 wins, I think, at the end. And getting to 2, I think, is not enough. So I don't know. Yeah, I think you could say it's a 4, but the second win was so big, like it counters a lot of like, the loss to Argentina, the loss to New Zealand at home as well.
Yeah, you it's it doesn't count to have a great start like that and then not follow through.
Yeah,
Like then it just shows you that it
that's fair.
was a fluke. So I'm gonna go with the trajectory they were on after the Lions tour. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like they had an opportunity. They had an opportunity to do better. And I think the big thing for me was the why they didn't do better was just purely on their own shoulders. They
mm.
were not outplayed when they had games that they lost. It generally wasn't because they were outplayed. It was because they weren't at the races. They made silly mistakes. They just didn't do it. They didn't connect right. They didn't spend enough time together, whatever the case may be. So it was on them squarely.
Yeah, I think just Saturday's game, I think, was just the worry. Like all the penalties. I mean, we talked about this through the Rennie and the Jones era. Like they'd have so many penalties, they get themselves a yellow card, they'd like play on the back foot. And then when they get the ball and get opportunities, they just conspire to just mess them up. So their line out wasn't working, like the back line wasn't quite connecting. Yeah, so that was what's worrying. Like, and I can kind of buy, and I'm not too perturbed about the other losses that they had before that because, either it was because they were absolutely non-existent for the first 30 minutes and had to do a big comeback, or, they showed during the game they sort of problem solved. But this one was just sort of going back to what, especially after all the momentum that was built in the last few months, that was what was disappointing. Like, just why isn't your line out working? That hasn't really been a problem. Um, why are you getting yourselves on the wrong side of the referee? You've been really disciplined around the rucks. Like, Hoop, I think, was somewhat unlucky with the yellow card because I don't think he was intending to croc roll. He's doing like what World Rugby is telling players to do when a player's on over the board, sort of go on their sides and sort of like sort of sumo flip them over or wrestle flip them over. It's just, I guess it was also wet. So then it went from sort of going to the side to then he was on the leg. And then obviously he got himself into a bad position. But, you can't, like, in the first two games, I think they conceded only 11 penalties in total in South Africa in two games. And then I think every game since has been at 10 penalties or close to 10 penalties. So you're not going to win like that. So I think that's what's the concerning thing for this team is when now they change coaching, are they, yeah, which which voice on their shoulder they're going to lean towards, like discipline Schmidt ball and sort of keeping structure and keeping discipline and keeping themselves in the match, or sort of the bad habits that we've seen them have, not only in the international game, but also in Super Rugby as well. And I didn't realize they have an 11 match losing streak against New Zealand now. That's
Yeah,
a big concern.
massive, massive. And if they made I don't know how, I can't remember how many years the Bledisloe Cup's been just on two games. I think it's been not
Mm.
been too long. I think it's like 4 or 5. But I mean, that could easily be 20. But that's crazy, especially the last 2 years. Like their crap years have coincided with bad All Blacks as well.
Mm.
Like it's such a pity that their good years didn't go when the All Blacks were not so great.
Yeah, I mean, just better timing, guys. Like this was your time to sort of capitalize and get yourself a Bledisloe Cup. Star players. I think you could also probably okay. My star player is Len Ikitau. I think he's just been probably the best back of the tournament. Even like he's just been that good. He's transformed himself into a 12. He like the line that line he runs off nine, or when he picks up at nine and becomes like one of the best lines in the planet of just putting people away. Like he's been really good around the rack area. He hasn't really given too much of an inch. In the collision against like bigger 12s. I still think Ikitau and Swali aren't great defensively, but they've been decent and it feels like Swali is like learning on the job as much as possible. he's obviously a pretty good kicker as well. He's had to do a lot with, the tens changing pretty much every test. So yeah, he's been. I mean, I think Harry Wilson probably is also candid for this, and Fraser McBride, maybe Max Jorgensen, but I think he's been the star player for them, Sean.
Yeah, he's been great. He was mine as well.
Yeah.
But because you picked him, I'm going to pick Nick White. Nick White, the nine conversation with the Wallabies, even pre-Lions tour, was very interesting. My gut feel like I'm a big Nick White fan. My gut feels that McDermott has probably got the edge, but I know what Nick White's got. Like he's really got what he's shown, and then he basically was like, "Cool, I'm retiring. Let me show you what." And so much so that they needed to bring him back again. And I almost feel like they're going to bring him back again in November if there's another injury. So yeah, but Len Ikitau, without a doubt, for me. He's been amazing. And their loose trio has been good, but they haven't been consistently good enough. Like, and I don't mean like every game as a whole they've been good, but there's been a little bit of shitty moments here and there.
Yeah.
They've dropped the ball, they've kind of fizzled out. So
Yeah.
Ikitau's been seems to have been that constant. He's got a lot of smoke and mirrors about him, eh? Very deceptive with the things he does, like the way his shoulders are shaping when he passes and stuff. He's pretty gnarly. I quite like it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the Premiership. I think he's going to be really good for Exeter. Yeah, Mike Breakthrough. I mean, does Joshua Lee count? I guess so. I mean, this was his first rugby championship. Like he's literally, you can see him improving every game, and I think that's the encouraging thing. And see him learning and sort of finding out what this Test rugby thing is. So I think he's been great. I think yeah, he ended up tied for top try scorer, with a hooker. So that essentially means you're the top try scorer because obviously hookers do it off the back of seven other people.
It should be those try stats should be hard for hookers.
Yeah, I fully agree. I so agree with that. But yeah, he's been great. I think he's making the right reads in defense. Like I think he had a shot on Will Jordan. Jeez, I mean, I think he almost injured himself, but like he just was shoulder and all, but not in a rugby league way. He was kind of rapping, but he was, he really can put in a shoulder when he needs to. He's making sort of those like shoot reads on defense. Like he's able also to sort of jockey and sort of catch up to an attacker as well. Obviously, he's very fast. And just his footwork, like when he has the ball in hand, like kind of like Damien Willemse in a way. Like if you give him, like if you're not on top of him when he gets the ball, he can sort of manufacture like he can beat a defender. He can find his way through and make a gap, which is such a dangerous thing for the Wallabies. So I think it's good that this Ikitau Swali combination has worked. There's a lot of things that are working and coming together. It's just now, can we keep all the players fit? And when we have a bad moment as a team for the Wallabies, can that bad moment not be worth 20 points? Can it just be worth 5 or 10?
Yeah. The most important thing for them is having that 12-13 stay together.
Mm.
So Ali's got there's so much there. You can see it in game, and as you say, you can see him learning in game. Like with way he changes, what he does, he generally works on fixing his errors. Like he looks like he really wants to get involved.
Mm.
And then the more he does that, I think the more they will plan to get him involved. That is the one thing that I was hoping to see more of. But perhaps it's kind of like we will give you more, but let's just manage this for now.
Mm.
So yeah, I agree with you. But just to pick someone different, like I totally would pick Suali, but breakthrough player, not really. But Max Jorgensen has been great for them, especially considering they lost Banks. Banks?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you're a few years back
Banks.
now with Tom Banks.
Yes. Sorry. Tom Banks. Right. Tom Wright.
Yeah.
So Jorgensen's been pretty good. So I've been quite happy with him. And then I just want to shout out to Filippo Dagunu. That
Mm.
guy's reinvented himself. I thought he was like I really thought he was just a flat track bully, but
Mm.
he's not. He's a lot more complex. He's fast. He's changed himself. He can play 13. I love him. Yeah, I've become a little bit of a cult fan of him. I don't know why. I just loving him. He must please, I hope he hangs around for November.
Yeah, no, he's been surprisingly good. I think, like Australia's has found quite a few really good like outside backs now the last few years. Like, we had Potter, we had Peach play a little bit, we had Corey Toole, and Algunu, I think the last few games where he's got opportunities, he's just shown, look, obviously he's a power player, like he's really good at sort of getting over people and finishing everything, and he's shown like he has a lot of value. And that player you can play at 13 and 14, like that's quite a valuable thing for them. So I think he's been great. Also, quick shout outs to, I mean, not a breakthrough as well, but Tom Hooper, I think, has really cemented himself into this team now. He's at least in the 23. I mean, I guess it's been somewhat fortunate that Rob Valentina has been available the last few weeks, but like he has to be in the 23. And the Hooper McWright Wilson combo works well, so he's going to be in that mix. Jeremy Williams, I think, has been quite impressive, especially off the bench. Taniela Tupou has sort of had a big resurgence. Like,
Yeah.
because I mean, a few months ago we were literally saying like, I don't know if this old player is going to come back anymore.
He's reaching that level that everyone said he would reach when he signed pro and they were
Yeah,
showing schoolboy highlights.
yeah.
Like he's reached that level now where I'm like, okay, it's not just all talk.
Yeah. And I think the impressive thing is that he hasn't done too many highlight things. He's done the
Yes.
grunt work.
Yep.
And another player that it's almost like an apology tour for this one, but Harry Wilson, fair enough, man. I see it now. You still need to work on your captaincy, but I see it now. Like you're really, really, really good. And you matter a lot to this Wallaby team and how they play because, your ability to offload, your ability to be everywhere. Like obviously there's a lot of Warren Whiteley in him, like just his work rate and ability to be where he needs to be. And that I think is making a big impact for them. So yeah, big shout out to the Aussie captain. But please don't irritate referees. Just like he needs, yeah, we're joking that Nick White needs to influence him. Obviously not, but like he needs to just take a bit of a chill pill. He needs to be sort of saying to Nick White, be angry with the ref so I can look like the good guy telling you to shut up.
It's the Sia Khaleesi Eben Etzebeth balance. It's perfect. Like we've seen it. The funniest thing is like cool. They're like, okay, you're gonna be captain. He's like, cool. What captain do I want to be? And then he goes to read up about a captain and sees the pros and cons, and then does that. It's like, dude, just be you. Because every time where he's got on the wrong side of the ref, it's almost like it's an unnatural captaincy he's trying to pretend to be.
Yeah.
Like, just be you, bro. Everything's fine. Just
Yeah, maybe this is how he is. Maybe he's really just annoying to everyone around around the park. Lastly, Los Pumas. I mean, also kind of in the same boat as Australia, where you kind of need to win 3 games, especially with the start that they had. They've obviously gotten a win against New Zealand in the first game, first 2 games. They won away in Australia. I mean, they must be like so annoyed with themselves that they didn't play this game in Buenos Aires or wherever in Argentina because they probably might have had a better chance of maybe getting this win. But yeah, I mean, I think for the Pumas, which is, I guess, a good thing. It's a disappointment if they don't get 3 wins out of 6. So that's the first thing. Obviously, last year they finished second in the log. They were sick. I mean, they were sorry, fourth this time. But it's 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 somewhat. I don't know. Like I don't know if I feel more encouraged about the Pumas or with with Australia right now. I think you can make arguments for both. I think you can also sort of give them a 5 or 6 out of 10 for their performance in this rugby championship.
if it wasn't for the last 2 games, they would have been much higher.
Yeah.
Like, if it wasn't for, if we had to rate them after the first 4 games, we'd probably be giving them an 8.
Mm.
Because they didn't crumble, like they didn't take a pasting. So yeah, 6. I don't know. It's like between a 5 and a 6 because they could have done better. They could have done much better.
Mm. And
Um,
yeah, I mean I think just losing and the massive loss that they had against South Africa and Durban was just, yeah, that was. I think also a big sort of difference between maybe it being like a 7 or an 8 than a 6. Because if they just lost that by a try, maybe even 2 tries, they're like, I mean, you're losing against South Africa in South Africa. That's not unheard of.
Yeah, you just got to be more competitive. Oh, it's a tough one, eh? A 6. I'll
Yeah.
give them that because they had a good start. They had a crap finish.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think you can make arguments of literally, I think them in Australia. Thank you guys. Sorry, there was a bit of a technical difficulty. So this is a part sort of added onto a part. We'll just continue just quickly summarizing what we thought about Argentina. Shaun, in terms of, I think their player of the tournament, I would go Santi Carreras. Like, obviously, we've talked about him not being, maybe a 10 necessarily. He had to pretty much step into that for most of the competition with Albanos. I think he only played 2 games or 2.5 games at the end. He was the top point scorer in the competition, like especially in a competition where it seemed like all other tens were a bit unstable in the other nations. He's been really good in attack. He's, I think, done well with the kicking game. Like he's been like a lot more of a solid like player for them. And yeah, it's really exciting to he's moving to Bristol, I think, right? I think it's quite exciting that he is able to sort of shift in between 10 and 12, 10 and 15, because, Albanos, hopefully once he's fit, he'll be there. I think Prishantelli was actually really good for them this weekend as well, Fanny, as well. I think he's also now moving to Racing. So there is options there, but it seemed like Carreras the potential that maybe other coaches saw in him to play him at 10 is actually being realized.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm going to just declare straight up, like, I'm not going to have any value to add with this Argentinian side once we move past this because I haven't watched enough of them. But my MVP has to be Marcus Kremer.
Yeah,
He's been pretty constant for them, but I'm going to be picking the low-hanging fruit, so my apologies. But yeah,
yeah,
Kremer's been pretty solid. And I think. You know, it's so tough with them. I can't for the life of me remember those like their wins against the All Blacks in Australia. I can't remember who was the top 3 guys that really cooked for them. So I apologize.
yeah. I mean, Kramer's still a good pick. He was highest tackler in the competition. Like, I think he made like 30 tackles in one game against Australia. Like, Kramer is doing Kramer things. Like, it's nice. I think that loose trio has become so interchangeable. Like,
Yeah,
Oviedo comes in, Gonzalez is in, obviously Matera. Grondona was here this weekend and he did really well. So, like, they've got options for days there. It seems like their locks are also quite rotational with Rubiolo and Petty. They didn't even have to call up Lavanini in this case. So yeah, I think for Argentina, it's just get a front row. It looks like that Thomas Rapetti that came on in the second half that bounced to Malcolm Marx and won a scrum penalty against Volcolo. I think he's 20, he played in the rugby in the under 20 championship earlier this year. I think he signed with Toulouse. That's usually a good sign.
really. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. The man with
So
the hair.
yeah.
He looks like he should be at Plet Rage in a couple months. Youngster.
I mean he's young enough to be fair. So I mean if he's something, that's a big win for Argentina. Because obviously they didn't have Thomas Gallo for the whole competition essentially. And they just need props that can just stand their ground against a team like South Africa.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, imagine having a scrum and being so good at it, world rugby fans give it a name.
Yeah.
Like, but now they're not that anymore. And I want to
Yeah.
know how those old boys watching the games, those old Pumas players that get invited to the game because it's like the 50-year anniversary of something.
Yeah.
Imagine the conversations they're having. And they're big, hard guys and their ears don't work and they're angry because their scrum is gone. Tough times.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, that's an investigation that I don't know, like Hugh Griffin needs to do. Like, what happened? Because you literally are, like you said, known for a scrum. Shout out to Donny Craven. You build all these players, and it just drops away for a generation. But yeah, I mean, it's a good sign that Rapetti. I mean, he's going to Toulouse. He's 20 years old. He held his own against the Springboks, and that's something at least to build on. Okay, Shaun, let's go then transition into the United Rugby Championship. Like, yeah, we're just complaining now about how
Uh,
many competitions are named
I'm
Rugby
gonna have a
Championship.
I'm gonna have a counter at the bottom of this, and it's just gonna tick over every time you get it wrong. Tick, tick.
I mean, yeah, I want to say it's my fault, but I'm going to blame World Rugby for having all these things like being named the same thing. But in any case, URC, a few games cancelled because of just wild weather happening in the UK this weekend. But in terms of South African teams, two wins, a draw, and a loss, and a last-minute loss at that. Okay, so first of all, Stormers won 26 points to 10. I think I watched more of this game than you did. Yeah, I mean, the Stormers look good. I think that's a very big positive, and they're good without their Boks, which is obviously more of a positive. I think it's the really impressive thing for me is two players, 1 and 15. Vernon Matongo is pretty decent at prop. Like he's kind of come out of nowhere and he's established himself as someone that can be trusted upon. Obviously, he was playing like what Varsity Cup for Marties and everything. Didn't know he's Zimbabwean, so that's obviously a big positive for them for their World Cup. And
Listen, he's going to the World Cup.
yeah,
Like that guy is good enough.
I hope he's capped by Zimbabwe because I mean if South Africa, they could sort of look there as well. And Wandi Simelane, he's
At
really good
15.
again.
At 15,
Yes.
you guys need to apologize to Jack White.
Oh my gosh. I mean, fair enough, Jake. You're not as crazy as we think you are sometimes, but he's been fantastic. I mean, he helped create that try. I think was it Ronaldo scored it? No, it was him. Some
No,
finished.
Ruan now did a ridiculous, like, tip ahead, dive,
Yes.
catch, offload. Ridiculous.
Yeah. But
Wani Similani's he's playing. So I was very fortunate enough to watch him play during school time.
yes.
Um, he actually came down to Cape Town for one of the tournaments, and I went and there was he was pretty well known then. Like I'd even heard of him, so I was like, let me go watch this guy. Pretty handy, but this seems like he's playing like that. And I know it's from 15, which is not his preferred position, but it's your preferred position if you're having a great time and you're cooking. Like you will love it again, you know. He's doing well. Things are balanced a little bit better. I think where he
Go on
benefits
now.
is I was gonna get there. I don't need an opportunity to mention a 13,
That's
eh?
fair.
The thing with Wandi is like he's got the opportunity to see things from 15 and come into the line, but the biggest thing is what Ruan now brings to that side. Like the back line has changed and it's almost all because of Ruan now. Where the problem lies is when Willemse and Sasha return, who's going to take the heat?
Yeah.
And I think 10 and 12 will take that heat and Wandi will stay at 15. But then we still got Galantis coming back from injury. Like we're in the Stormers are in a flippin' wild place. But the key thing for me is 13 and 15. I think you can't underestimate what Ruanel's brought to that side. He's got ridiculous skills, and that's again that seven conversation. But he's also the boring guy in the back line, which you need. It's the Stormers especially. And that's also why he does so much better. And on top of the fact that he's got incredible leadership capabilities. Yeah, the Stormers are looking good early, which is wild because that hasn't happened at all in the URC. The
Mm.
Stormers only came good in the URC that they won after halfway.
Yeah.
So this could be something.
Yeah, they're famously like quite slow starters and kind of find their way and then sort of get into momentum. So this is good. And like I think they usually are good when all the players are together. So it's great that they're kind of finding form without that. Yeah, I think you're right, Sean. It's just a more balanced team. And that's why they're playing well. I think Paul de Villiers has been great. He was off the bench this weekend. He's a much more of a sixth than the likes of Marcel Tiernissen. Evan Roos, obviously, like this is his bread and butter, like dominating the URC. He's been great. So keep Rowan Null at 13. I would probably go Sasha 10 and Willemse 15 and Simelane be like your impact player. So yeah, that's now the question for Dobbo is how do I keep this when now all the players are back and everything? I think he's going to be kind of wishing that some players have like 2 week suspension, so he can just sort of rotate people in and out. And a
He
quick shout
will
out,
he will
yeah,
happily, sorry, shout out.
very quick shout out. Dan Kasende was fantastic for Osprey, so another player for Zimbabwe that can help them for 2027.
Yeah, and he had a good game last week as well, if
Mm.
I'm not mistaken. He's quite deadly. Um, the Stormers are going to be enforcing all these Springbok rests. So anyone that has been in an alignment camp is going to have a 2 week mandatory rest, even though they don't qualify. I think that's the best way to do it. Interesting that you mentioned they're going to put Simelane in the well, you would put Simelane in the bench and you'd have Sasha and Willemse. I really feel they're going to go 10, 12. I think that's where the thing is.
Mm.
But Yuri Matia very quietly has had 2 great
Mm.
weeks. Um, the
I did
bad
not
thing,
know he was that good, to be honest.
he looks very composed, very natural in that space.
Mm.
Like the most important thing when you've got these youngsters and when you've got guys that are really like heads up players is that it looks natural. And the thing that you see so often is when players and teams they start forcing things and it doesn't work. So when it stays natural is when it looks good, everyone has a jaw. The downside for the Stormers is they've lost Nitlin for share for how long I don't know, but I
Mm.
think he had an operation on a broken arm,
Okay.
or he broke his arm. So there's that hassle,
Yeah,
and
it's a
then
big
yeah,
loss.
massive, especially because I really feel that the props as a unit do well together.
Mm.
So it will affect Matongo a little bit, and I'm hoping not too much, obviously. But like there was a strike weapon on its own, not just the front row, but just the two props. So
Mm.
yeah, very interesting. And then obviously Sinatla's been in great form. Sinatla's
Yes, fantastic.
been in wild form. Everyone knows his story. I'm just so happy for him. Just makes the heart warm. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. But the backline right now is looking great. But all the Boks and everyone come back straight away. So let's see what they bring this week.
Yeah, so they are off to Europe. So they are going to be, yeah, like I think their first game, just to double check. So coming up now. But yeah, playing Scarlets actually, or bottom of the log right now. So yeah, you
Next to
just
Leinster.
just under Leinster, yeah. So yeah, I think especially if Forshier's out for probably a few months, yeah, that's going to be a big question for them because I don't think they have that much depth at prop. Like obviously Santi as their reserve tight head, like Ali Mark is still around. They're still waiting for Mtunu to make his debut for the Stormers, so that they'll need a solution there very quick. I don't know if Brock Harris. I hope he's changed his SIM card because he might get a phone call this week. And he wants yeah. I speak for Brock Harris. I'll speak on behalf of him. He needs to be retired. Like he can't be still playing at like 46 or whatever he is. So I
It's
hope
like,
he leaves the
listen,
number.
just put me on special teams. I'll scrum, but then I'm not running after that. Just let me scrum and then play with 14.
I'll just walk around until the next scrum, basically.
Listen, we every club side in this country, in the world, has got a prop like that.
Yeah.
So we'll just elevate this into the program.
So then, yeah, let's go to the Sharks. I mean, they drew 17-17 to Dragons. They are very lucky that this was a draw. So we were talking about this before we started recording. So essentially, Dragons get themselves level. It's the last minutes. They are dominating possession the last 10 minutes. Pretty much over now, the 80th minute. They are in the Sharks 22. They're attacking. They had probably in the 20s of phases in the 22. Tears the Beers waiting in the pocket, ready to kick one over. I don't know what Roger Williams. I don't know if he didn't hear him or if they don't really have like a drop goal sort of setup, whatever the case is. Or if they're just like, we want to sort of win our first, because I think this would have been their first win in over a year, right? Or something like that.
They didn't win a game last season.
Yeah, okay, so definitely more than a year. But then they try to score. They sort of go through the phases, playing off nine. Williams throws a wild pass to the wing, and then they eventually make a knock on. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad. I mean, Benetton, they won with a drop goal at the end. I think Munster also had a drop goal. I hope teams learn very quickly. You need to at least have a drop goal play, guys. Come on.
Especially when you've got a South African at 10.
Name De Beer.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, listen, I didn't watch the game, but it almost feels like it was a win for the Sharks, the way that you've described it. It seems like they snatched a draw from the jaws of defeat. But yeah, like the thing is with the Dragons, I talk about like playing within yourself and not snatching at things. That's kind of what they did. Sometimes you win a few games, like that becomes a natural play for you. You're a little bit more composed, but it sucks for them. I'm glad it didn't happen, being a Sharks fan and all. But by the sounds of things, they're going to feel like they lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't watch the whole game myself, so I can't say too much, but it just, from what I've read, it just sounded like yet another Sharks game that you can copy paste for the last like 3 or 4 years. So players playing under themselves, lots of dumb errors, then 10, 15 minutes where you're just like, okay, you guys can play rugby. But yeah, ultimately the result was a bit disappointing. But good to see, like, seems like, in terms of stats, the likes of Emmanuel Chituka, that Buthelezi and Tuka loose trio just seems like all hard work. Like
Yeah.
over 10 tackles, like a lot of carries when they have the opportunity. So that's good. So yeah, they'll be very happy to get their Springboks back. I don't know how much Kolisi and Etzebeth will be playing in the next few weeks. They've got Leinster, and Leinster, I think, have all their Lions back, their British and Irish Lions back. So yeah, that could be a reckoning. But the Sharks are the typical will play well when it's a good team, or play badly when it's a bad team game. So I assume this is their last week on tour, so maybe I don't think they'll get the Springboks for this week, but I can see this being a close game for 60 minutes, and then Leicester sort of goes away from it, and then everyone's like, "Oh, why are the Sharks competitors?" So I can see this being that typical like good loss that they're gonna do now.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was daydreaming there.
No,
The I don't actually know what's happening with the Springboks and how they're going to manage it. But
yeah.
I don't
I
know.
assume they miss at least one game.
Yeah, and it's got to be one quite soon as well, like almost this week. But yeah, we'll wait and see. The idea of beating Leinster at the RDS is also quite a big carrot to dangle, eh?
Mm. Yeah, and that will be Leicester's third loss in a row. So yeah, I mean, I assume for the Sharks and for the Lions have, I guess, one Springbok. They all come back when they come back next week
Ah!
into South
Do you want to
Africa. So
take
we have one.
the knife out of Ringo's back there quickly?
We're gonna get to them, but yeah. So because the Sharks and Lions have one more game in Europe and then they come back, so I guess it makes sense that the Etzebeths and Kolisis and all those players play when they come back to Durban. So yeah, the yeah, Marvinari All Stars will have to play the Lions themselves basically this weekend.
There we go.
Bulls, yeah, good win against Leinster at the end. Bit helter-skelter in the middle, because it felt like, again, another typical Bulls Loftus game where they got to a big lead. They let the team in when they seem like they're tiring, and then they sort of eke it out at the end. Willie le Roux was a big impact player off the bench. There was good stuff from Keegan Johannes, I think, at the start. Bilo Gumede was man of the match, and he was well. He deserved that as well. He played really well. Like, I don't think the Bulls are top gear yet. They're at the top of the log at least. They've got a big win against. I mean, obviously they'll probably be competing with Leinster for top of the log at the end. So it's good to win that game. Yeah, I think things are happening quite well, and they'll be quite excited to integrate the likes of Pollard and Sandfontein into this in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought the Bulls I think they'll probably be disappointed a little bit if they had to look at the game because they probably should have won by more, or maybe not have let Leinster in so much is
Yes.
maybe the better way of putting it. They showed some good things. It's very clearly that they kind of took their eye off the prize for a little bit. Leinster came back, and it ended up being quite an exciting game. Great for Leinster. I really think that they needed it because if they didn't perform for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden went back to their fortress at home, the pressure would have been on big time. Um, but they are very much. I was listening to one of the podcasts, and they were saying that Leinster only played one preseason game.
Mm,
So they're kind of approaching this tournament a little bit different in that they're going to hit their straps a little later. So a la Crusaders, in that they always start badly and then they will get better. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how they go. But they had a good performance at Loftus, which
yeah.
is something that you really need to do. And it's really, regardless of the loss, like you're going to go home thinking we actually had a pretty good one and a little bit of confidence leading into their first home game of the season.
Yeah. I think just for Leinster, very quickly, it's just something needs to happen with the attack. It's a bit too predictable. I mean, you can sort of say that's maybe like a Prendergast thing of obviously how like much he doesn't necessarily like he's not as like a multi-dimensional as other fly halves are with obviously his running game. But yeah, maybe it will happen obviously when they get more of their first class players back, but they just need to be able to create more opportunities because they did eventually score tries, but it felt like their tries were 15, 20 phase tries, and the Bulls were able to sort of break them open 2, 3 phases. So they need to just find ways to make it easier for them. So, but yeah, good for them that they're able to sort of get that confidence. Like this is still a very good team that they sent to South Africa. So yeah, I think now when you're now integrating the likes of the Van der Fleers and the McCarthy, or no, I think McCarthy's injured, but Porters and all those players, then obviously it becomes an insane team. So yeah, we'll see how they go. They face the Sharks next week. The Bulls are also on tour. They start their 3-week tour and they're going to be facing Ulster on Saturday night. So that'll be should be a win for the Bulls, honestly. But anyway, then the last game was the Lions against Zebre, and Zebre win that 22 points to 20 with a conversion or a try and the conversion the last minute.
Just, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. The Lions could be the new Dragons. This could be that year where they are the Dragons. Because, firstly, I just want to commend Zebre. They've got 2 wins in a row. I don't know when last they had 2 wins, and I don't know when last they were in the top quarter
Yeah.
of the table. Like this is quite something. Um, Benetton are usually Italian side that cause the troubles, not Zebre. So this is huge for them. Um, but it's just the lines were. It's weird. They need to change the kit. Firstly, I think someone needs to say something. Maybe that's the problem. But they've got to. I don't know. I don't know. Like that's the thing. It's frustrating. They're just struggling a little bit with players. The players that they've lost, they haven't been able to replace properly. The Lions have always operated on that everybody hates us, we're the ugly stepson kind of thing. And they've really taken that to heart and dominated. And now it's almost like they're starting to believe it. So they've run out of that sort of punch. So yeah. But from Zebra's point of view, Bautista Stavile or Staville, we've got 2 man of the match performances in a row. Machine, and what a great result. Like, I'm so happy for them. It just sucks that it was against one of our teams.
Yeah. Yeah, look, Sean, like I said, when they lost the Currie Cup, like it's not a good sign that your C team loses to an essentially part-time team in the Crickers. So that's already a strike. And yeah, I mean, they just are not, I just don't think they have the quality in the tight five that they should have. Obviously, they still haven't Kabakanye at the moment. So that's the scary part. Like he hasn't even started as we assume might be a ban and might be a long time ban once that case gets litigated for the doping. So if he's out late in the season, I don't know if the Thai 5 options are the ones that you are trusting for them because there is talent, like 6 onwards, there's talent. The backline, there's a ton of talent. Like, I mean, is Chris Smith the most attractive number? Well, in his play, I'm not talking about his appearance, whatever. But like, just saying, like, is he the most sort of like eye-catching 10 in the world? Probably not. But he's good enough, and there's still players around him that are great. Yeah, like I don't know. It's just looking like I don't know how many things they can sort of pull off. They need to get home, I think. If they
Yes.
lose then games in Joburg, I think that's when alarm bells are ringing. Because I think their SA games, when they come back, are Scarlets and Ulster. They need to win at least one. So before this, um, before the November test start, they need to at least have one win out of five. If it's not out of five, I'd seriously just be like, okay, Cash, you can't come back. Like, we have to go with someone else for the rest of the season. So these next 3 weeks are quite important for them to start just getting themselves back on track.
Yeah, listen, I don't even know who they're going to be able to replace Cash with anyway,
Yeah.
so there's that. But what I'm going to say is not based on anything. It's just purely vibes. I want to have a look at it, but I wouldn't mind seeing Dobela at 10 and Chris Smith at 12. And that's not because Creel had a bad game at 12. Like you can play Creel on the wing, you can move him around, do whatever, but you can have Dobela, Smith, and then Van Wyk as your 10, 12, 13. I just want to have a look at that. I think Smith can play 12. I think that playmaker might be a good role for them to have. And it's something that would have been an option with Richard Creel there at 12. So, yeah, I don't know if that decision, if they need to change or anything, but it's just something I'd like to see. With the players that are available to them, maybe it works.
I would go opposite because they need Marius and Marius Lowe. Obviously, Lowe has moved to England. I'd say Reinhard Jonker, let's try out at 12. Let's see if you can sort of give that sort of like go forward ball. I mean, look, with the Creel brothers, you play them anywhere, they'll be fine. Like, I'm sure you
Mm,
can play them
mm.
in the front row, they'd still do a good job there. So you can sort
David
of,
can play lock. He looks like a freaking giant.
yeah, he's tall, he's very tall. So I'd probably move Creel to the wing, David, Cater can come off the bench. But I mean, I think that's kind of moving the chairs in the Titanic. It's the front five that need to be, yeah, we need to find something there because it's just not quite happening. I mean, yeah, like I'm just looking at ages as well. Franco Marais been playing for a long time. He's in his 30s. Like, obviously a good pro. I don't think anything wrong with having a Franco Marais in your squad, but if he's your starting hooker, I mean, I know Pierre Borta's not available at the moment, but like that's not good. Etienne Oosthuizen's also in his mid-30s, also like a seasoned pro. Like they just don't have
Is
like
that the old Sharks Oosthuizen who was playing for Leon?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Okay.
they just don't have like we're talking about with the Stormers, a Matongo like coming through, or a JF and Heerden for the Bulls, like just a front five player that they can sort of build upon, or two or three. Unfortunately, just don't have any Springbok front rows at the moment, except for Klabakanye. So it's just, yeah, if this Klabakanye news happen, or if this ban happens like nowish, like it's over for them. Like they just have no prospects of making like a knockouts or having any sort of like impact in this competition. So yeah, it's not good. But yeah, you're right in saying like big shout out to Zebre, top four. Yeah, well, let's see how they go. I think it's nice that they can be a spicy team, but yeah, it looks like the Lions are sort of taking their place in the basement now.
Oh. Like I'm looking at the Lions going, like I don't see them winning a game this season.
Yeah,
That's
it's crazy.
really being over the top, but like that's how they've played.
Yeah,
And the most important part of that whole thing is what you alluded to was they literally played the URC team to the end of the Curry Cup, ended up losing that, but the idea was to be ready for the URC, and now they're just not.
yeah. They've sort of lost on both fronts now. So this weekend, for the South African teams, on Friday, they've got Scarlets hosting the Stormers. Okay, so all four South African teams are in Europe this weekend. Scarlets hosting the Stormers on Friday night. Scarlets haven't really been playing too well, so yeah, Stormers should feel relatively confident about that with the form that they came from South Africa. But yeah, on Saturday, then it's Benetton are hosting the Lions. yeah, again, Benetton just won against Glasgow, so they should be feeling confident. So that's not a great opportunity for the Lions. Sharks against Leinster. Like we said, Leinster probably have all their big guns back. And then finally, Ulster hosting the Bulls. Yeah, I don't know. I think two wins would be lucky. Probably more one win than two. And yeah, especially like these are three of the four were playoff teams last season.
Mm.
So, and Ulster, yeah, we've said a lot of rough things about Ulster, I think, the last season and a bit, but like,
But you were right. I will sing the song for the rest of my days when you guys called Ulster and they still finished where you said they would, despite all the shit you got. You
yeah,
guys are legends.
I think it could be a very tricky weekend there.
So totally off topic, but I don't ever recall a URC playing both a team playing both the Italian sides one week after the other, especially a South African. Like
Yeah.
how cool to spend a full week and a bit in Italy. Normally you fly in and leave.
Oh, that's actually
Because
right.
that I don't know why, but I haven't seen it before and it seems like a pretty cool thing to do. So there's that. That's all I'm going to say about the Lions. You read into that what you will. Then Sharks Leinster. I would 100% change the plan and play as many of my Springboks as possible for this Leinster game, just for shits and giggles. I think, what's the worst that could happen? You just move everything around a little bit. I think that's great. They would have been in London for over a week anyway. I don't know if they flew home. Maybe they didn't. I hope they didn't. Then
Look, I
Bulls
mean,
Ulster.
just
Bulls have
based
to
on the
win.
state of the coaches in Rassi's video, I don't think they've made their flights.
Some, some of the best. The reason why social media was invented was for some of those comments. Someone commented, nah, that's a 7-1 split with brandy to Coke. And the other one was like, now you know what an Irishman looks like that's been dehydrated. Because, wow, they didn't even look like that after we won a World Cup.
Yeah.
This this was huge. This was huge.
Yeah, this is a
Um,
big day out.
yeah, it's hilarious. Like social media has come to the fore. Everyone's asking Rusty for proof of life today, which is like 2 days afterwards. It's been incredible. Incredible. That's was quite funny. But there's some sore heads, and I'm sure there were some flights missed.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean, any Prem stuff that you saw this weekend? I see wins for Bath, Exeter getting a win. That's, I think, quite big. Saracens thrashed Bristol, Northampton edged one against Gloucester.
So Bristol have been hit by a million injuries. It looks like they've lost Louis Samet, but I don't know for how long.
Mm.
But they're a bit under pressure. Gloucester had one of the great comebacks yesterday. I think they were like 23-0 down or something like that. And they ended up taking the lead only for a penalty to kind of drop them back down and lose again. So there was that. Yeah, Exeter have been interesting. Bath have been looking good. There's still a lot happening. Ollie Lawrence has come back from his Achilles injury, what looked like months too early. When I saw him named in their preseason team, I was like, yeah, that's a bit weird. And then he was named to start, and he started in both these games. And he's already got a try assist. He looks like the one time he had to run back, he got a ball, and then he had to start sprinting. Like that's quite a lot of work for an Achilles injury.
Mm.
So he's clearly confident, and trusts the process. Bath are looking good. Like their bench is ridiculous. Ben Spencer's. I'm This is going to be the worst year for me because I'm just going to be like, Ben Spencer needs to be starting for England. He's their best scrum half again, and he's just going to be overlooked. He's basically the Ambrose Papier of England.
Yeah, I watched that game on Friday. It was fantastic. Like, obviously, he was the difference. Crazy conditions. You saw the value of him and George Ford on the
And
opposite
Ford,
side. Yeah.
Ford, this is what's going to happen. George Ford and Owen Farrell are going to be in an argument, like with fan arguments about playing for England. And the argument's going to be they're too old, but they're both going to be on form. Whether at 10 or 10 and 12 or whatever, England are going to be in a very interesting space. You could make a team of players that are rejected by England that would beat England. You'll have Spencer at 9. You can have Ford at 10, Farrell at 12. You can have Ted Hill playing because we know he's not going to get picked. Doesn't matter how good he is. Yo, I'm having moans, eh? But anyway, Bath are looking good. They've got all the depth.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. Max Jomo actually holding his own in fly half, which is the most insane thing.
Yes, and he's going to play in that not picked 15 as well because he's not going to get picked. Man, that guy's got a ridiculous pass.
Yeah.
Oh, Bath. Saracens looking good.
Yeah, Farrell playing at 12 with Fergus Burke. So Cooks must be so happy about that.
Listen, Farrell looked like he's done all the gym, eh? He's looking pretty solid.
Yeah.
I can't wait for him to have a great season. And I just want to apologize to Owen Farrell. Before he left Saracens, when he was playing, I said he's got one more season and he'll be the Six Nations best scorer ever because he's like 30 points off, and then he goes and leaves, and now he has to fight his way back in. I still believe that he can be. I just want him to be the highest scorer in Six Nations so he can overtake Johnny Sexton, and because it's Owen Farrell and I'm a fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's getting himself in there. I'm sure, I guess Marcus Smith is probably going to be playing this weekend. So yeah, let the games be, and Finn Smith. So let the games begin with that 10 battle now.
Tyron Green's also cooking. I know Quins are not getting the results, but Tyron Green's back in form.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
good
mean,
things
look,
to talk about, eh?
yeah, Premers, yeah, like there's a lot of like really cool players there. Um, I think very quickly, once we're still on England for a little bit, one, Tom Jordan, nice to see that he's playing for Bristol. He's playing at
Off
10 there.
injured.
Was he injured as well? Oh no.
Yeah,
Ah,
they've lost both their starting tens in the opening 2 weeks. They've lost Randall. They have lost Louis Samet. So it's AJ McGinty, Tom Jordan. They've lost Gabriel Ibitoye, who was like their best attacking player last year.
yeah.
Yeah, they're in shit, and they look like serious injuries. I know AJ McGinty did his Achilles. What's with all the Achilles injuries?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it the field? Who knows? But yeah, two things.
That's a big
One,
fight you're starting, eh?
let me rather not. One, did you see that Andy Farrell has a book coming out? And
Oh,
he talked about what happened with Owen. Basically, he was going to pick him, but Owen said, you shouldn't pick me. So he was the
I
one
could
that sort
totally
of,
see that.
yeah, I
Like
mean, that makes
the
sense.
the haters will overlook everything that everybody else says about Owen Farrell. Like if you had to read up all the things that other people, players and people talk about Owen Farrell when they say that he has to be a leader, he has to be the captain, he has to be this, and then you hear something like that, I totally believe it. Like he would have straight up just been like, listen, like how can you pick me when you've got this guy and this guy?
Yeah.
But then he's like, cool, I'm gonna take a gig with media. I'll be there if you need me. And he's probably been like, listen, if something goes down, I'll bring you into the squad. And then he
Yeah.
just went and did gym for 3 weeks and then played in a Leinster.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Two, just yeah, very unfortunate hearing today about Lewis Moody and him having MND. Yeah, like just obviously showing how risky this game is, honestly, and like the consequences that it really can have, and why, there is that emphasis on just head contact and just trying to limit that as much as possible. Look, Moody, I mean, he was called Mad Dog for a reason. Like he literally played like sort of in those sort of more old-fashioned rules, like just head first into everything. So you can kind of see how someone like him can have those impacts. But I mean, he was a legendary player, World Cup winner, captain for England. Like, I think a player that like everyone in that era really looked up to because he really put his body on the line. Like, he really like, I guess in that Skulkberger mode on like, I think that's a good comparison. Like, he was willing to sort of do anything, put his literal body on the line
Mm.
in order to do that. And it's unfortunate he has to pay this high price for it.
Yeah. He walked the talk. Like he spoke about it. He was a great leader, amazing guy. Like he's the kind of guy that when he played against the Springboks, you were like so wary of him, but you didn't hate him.
Mm.
Like he just carried himself in that manner that you like, flip, I can respect this guy. And he was everywhere, doing everything all the time, unbreakable. And this is crazy. On a positive note, he's going to become a massive, massive person in this MND fight
Mm.
moving forward. Like you just read his statement that he pushed out, he's super positive, but he's going to be a guy that you'll look back on in the years and be like, he made a massive dent in the progress that we did in terms of how to prevent it and how to try and fix it. Because it's not being able to be done at the moment. But yeah, it's so sad, man.
Yeah. Um, and then I think just lastly, just quickly touching on a few other news in the rugby world. Waratahs win the Super Rugby AU competition, that random competition that just happened over a month. Congratulations to them. We have quarterfinalists in the MPC, Canterbury, and Otago probably looking the best there. Top 14, I watched a lot of the Bordeaux-Lyon game. Just an insane game. Like, just
Really?
attacking talent everywhere. Like, just realizing that Bordeaux have Bioberi and Pinot on their side. Lyon have Monty Ioane and Junita Waninkolo on their side, and they were just all going full sort of hammer and tongs against each other. So it's just you just look at the stats, like everyone has like over 100 meters running and has beaten 5 defenders each and made 2 clean breaks and all that sort of stuff. So it's just that sort of
That's how
chaotic.
you see the top 14. When those two teams plays, that's exactly what you do. You're like, cool, these four guys are going to do all the meters and they're going to beat 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So on
Jalibert
the
we
top
have
four, on the top 14, Monitu Lagi had a ridiculous game this
exactly,
weekend.
yeah, against Toulouse.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Best game he's had in France since he's gone. He a couple of injuries and whatnot, but yeah, he's cooking at the moment.
Yeah, and Bayonne are top of the log, which
Yeah.
probably has never happened this deep into the competition. So yeah, they lead like Stade and Toulon. I think they've played a game less, and Bordeaux and Toulouse have both had 2 losses already. So that's
It's
very tough.
Segons at 10 for Bayonne, hey?
Yes.
That answers all your questions, bro.
Yeah, look, Bayonne, I mean, they were in the semi-finals last season. They're really good. And it's good that they're carrying on this momentum. And Tulagi wasn't even playing in the semi-finals. So, if he can, that's the thing. If he can stay fit, we've said this now for 15 years, but if he can stay fit, he really can make a difference for a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Perpignan just fired their coach because they've lost now 5 in a row. Montauban, yeah, that's not going to end well. Like, at least they got that
Montauban are
Jorgensen
gonna
going.
spoil the party for not spoil the party, but they're going to get maybe an upset here or there.
Yeah,
I'm just happy that they're there.
yeah,
Like they earned it. What an unbelievable story. They're in the top 14. Like
that's
this
this.
is gonna go down in their clubhouse. This is when we played the top 14, and that's what everyone's gonna strive for the rest of days. I'm
Yeah,
happy.
yeah. I mean, I think we mentioned last week. I don't know too much of the details of the story, but the Montauban captain being sort of banned basically by the FFR because he said some crazy things about Gaultier. Apparently, he was a Montpellier player back in the day when Gaultier was a coach, and yeah, Gaultier's a strange character, so I think he can rub people the wrong way. And he just said like he's like a horrible person, all that sort of stuff, and the FFR basically stepped in and sort of I think it's a few weeks or whatever he's been banned for.
On what
It's quite crazy.
grounds? On what grounds? Like what, how can you ban for saying this guy's an asshole? How? Why? It's
I
wild.
don't
But
know.
you talk about like coaches and just being off the rails. Like that's literally how you get the job in France. They're like, oh, do you want to coach? Show me how batshit crazy you are. Do you have this potential? I do. You're hired.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd love to read a few more things. I think they are a bit of prickliness in France. I think there's also Antoine Dupont saying something about like the salary cap and that it shouldn't be there. And they
He's
should be better.
renegotiating, that's why.
Yeah, I think he's looked at the R360, them saying they'll give you your image rights, and he's like, well, why don't we have this in France? So yeah, I guess maybe players are. I don't know how serious players are taking the R360. I mean, yeah, I don't know if we've discussed it on the pod. I don't think it's going to really last much, but I think some players are using this as a way to negotiate with their unions and saying, look, they can offer me this if it ever happens. Why don't we do this in France or wherever?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Like, I don't think it's going to get off the ground, but creating disruption in any space is generally a good thing.
Yeah.
If it's there's a way, there are a couple of ways of doing it, but if you can create disruption that causes people to change the way they think and it forces good change, like you're winning. But you can't go there and play hardball and the teams dig their heels in and say no, and then 360 doesn't come through anywhere, and then you can't negotiate anymore. But it is Antoine Dupont. Listen, he's not negotiating for his salary each month. He's negotiating, his salary is so high, he's making sure that Romain Intermark stays because it's going to be one or the other. That's how much he's going to ask for.
Yeah, I mean, apparently Toulouse have signed Tommaso Menoncello for next season, so like the
What a
rich get
signing.
richer.
What a signing. I don't know how they're going to replace Peter Aki, but Menicello is one of the best shots at it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why I'm like, sure, I guess you're replacing Aki, but you do have Santi Chocobares. I just want to remind people, like, it's not like you're desperate there.
Just interchange. Imagine Chocobares and Menicello together.
What? Yeah, I mean, this is getting too much. The rich are getting too rich there in Toulouse. Like they need to just give others a chance here. Goodness. But yeah, I mean, at least they've lost two games, so that gives people a little bit of hope, at least for now.
The Leinster of the top 14.
Yeah, I mean, at least yeah, they've at least won a few games. Yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, Sean, I mean, lots of URC to look forward to this weekend. Like I said, there's all manners of competitions are happening. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll have a few more of the British and Irish Lions playing. So, like, yeah, URC is almost at full tilt now. South African teams are away in Europe. Yeah, bit of a nice lull before the November international. So yeah, we can wrap up here. So thank you for listening to this Rugby Bird podcast. Please follow us on our social media channels to get any updates on what's happening in the rugby world. Please like and share and subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or on Spotify. Make sure that you share this podcast with your friends and make sure that this is the place that they get their rugby updates. And yes, we will see you again next week when we wrap up the next week's rugby. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.